The open meeting law requires that I notify everyone that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. And also, if there's anyone here recording this, could you identify yourselves to let everyone know that you might be doing this privately or from some other entity? So if there's no one here, so we'll proceed with the meeting. The first item is request authorization for the approval of the minutes of March 14, 2019. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 2, request authorization to execute and amend a license agreement with Crown Castle NG East to allow access to underground conduit network for the installation and use of maintenance of 200 linear feet for fiber optic cable to provide communications and data services within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Maureen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Crown Castle has been a tenant of ours in the Marine Park for about 2 or 3 years. They currently have small cell attachments on the light poles in the park to enhance data and wireless communication. They are now asking for access to the underground conduit beneath the roads in the Marine Park to attach. There are parcels that are adjacent to the. There are parcels that are going to be that are future development sites, and you have to go underground. You can't go overhead from pole to pole. So they're now asking to go underground, starting with 200 linear feet, and attaching to their the cell poles that they have currently. So that's what we're recommending, that we be allowed to do that. The current rate that the other conduit users are paying is $9.84 per conduit linear feet, and we're recommending that to begin with.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none. A motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 3, request authorization to allow T-Mobile Northeast LLC temporary placement of cell on wheels on a portion of Lot V-1 within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Maureen.
T-Mobile is also a current tenant of ours on top of 12 Channel Street on the roof. They have a couple cell antennas up there. They have asked to place a cell on wheels, which is basically a trailer kind of box that they place that acts as a data and communications, wireless communications. It's beside the pavilion, be adjacent to the pavilion, so it will enhance their all access in the park, but more specifically for them. So they'll take up 4 parking spots in the lot, and the rate that I used is the rate that they're paying on top of the roof of 12 Channel, which is $31.62 per month. Much more than we would get for parking. One parking spot would be $400 approximately per month, so it's twice that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none. A motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 4, request authorization to enter into a license with Caldwell Marine International LLC to allow temporary use of a portion and berth on Pier 5 within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park for barge staging to backfill a section of a cable trench in Boston Harbor. Maureen.
Thank you. Caldwell Marine is working with Eversource, and they are backfilling some conduit that they're placing from the Paul W. Conley Terminal in South Boston to Deer Island MWRA facility. So they need about 6,000 square feet of land to stage sand and a barge, which they'll take out 6 days per week for about 12 hours a day. And the rate that I charge them is the Mass Port tariff rate for docking and wharf.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none. A motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 5.
Thank you.
Request authorization to amend the lease agreement with 5-11 Dry Dock LLC, also known as North Coast Seafoods, to acknowledge the right to sublease the second floor of 5 Dry Dock Avenue for permanent uses, to extend the term limit, and to increase the rent within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 5 to 11 Dry Dock Avenue or North Coast Seafoods has been a tenant in the Marine Park since 1999. They were initially relocated out of the footprint of what is now the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center. They lease a 95,000 square foot parcel of land where they built a 110,000 square foot building, a state-of-the-art seafood processing facility, corporate offices, the very popular Dry Dock Cafe, and surplus office space on the second floor. We're requesting permission to amend the lease to allow subleasing of the surplus office space, provided that the uses are consistent with the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park Master Plan, and to extend the lease termination date from 2065 to 2075. In exchange for those accommodations, the fixed rent would increase from $140,000 per year to $265,000 per year, and that would increase by 10% every 5 years for the remainder of the term. That increase is consistent with the per square foot rate for commercial development rights in the Seaport. We're also introducing a 2% transaction fee in the event that the lease is sold or assigned, or refinanced with proceeds taken out. BPDA will also receive immediate payment, 3 separate payments, one for settlement of the outstanding subleasing fees, another payment for the increase in rent retroactive to January of 2018, and another fee for the additional 10-year extension.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, Dennis. Item number 6, request authorization to consent to a sublease between 7 Tide Street LLC and Creative Pilot, Inc. for the use of 7,556 square feet of second-floor space at 7 Tide Street within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clark Kitchen has been a tenant at 7 Tide Street since 2014. They operate an appointment-based showroom for high-end kitchen fixtures. The permitted uses section of the lease is reflective of Clark's business model. There are no retail sales on site. Consistent with the permitted uses, BPDA has approved 3 subleases to tenants within the complex, Reflex Lighting, Kohler Refrigeration, and Marvin Windows. This memorandum is requesting permission to amend the permitted uses to remove the showroom restriction specifically for a 7,500 square foot space on the second floor and replace it with a general industrial restriction. This change will permit Clark to sublease that space to a company called Creative Pilot. Creative Pilot will utilize the space for design and prototyping of packaging, textiles, clothing, and athletic equipment. This use meets the definition of advanced manufacturing that is in the Raymond L. Flynn Master Plan update. In exchange for this consideration, the annual fixed rent payable to BPDA from Clark will increase by $34,000 per year, and that will increase by 3.85% annually. That fee is consistent with the per square foot rate for industrial development rights in the Seaport.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you,
Thank you.
Dennis. Item number 7. Request authorization to award a general construction contract to some company, Eco Contracting, for the environmental remediation at 339 Northern Ave within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park in an amount not to exceed $676,030. Paul.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Secretary Polimis, and Director Golden. On March 15, 2018, board authorized an invitation to bid for environmental remediation at 339 Northern Avenue at the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. This property was once owned and operated by the federal government as a Navy annex in combination with the Boston Army Base, which is now considered the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. It was conveyed to the EDIC from the federal government in June in 1977. Significant historical use indicates hazardous materials at the site where there were 6 25,000-gallon number 6 fuel oil underground storage tanks that were used to fuel a small power plant. Tanks were abandoned in 1977 and were removed in 1987 by the United States Army Corps of Engineers, yet soil contamination remained. So this masonry building right here, this was once a former power plant. It actually serviced the park when it was a naval base. And in this general proximity right here, there was 6 underground storage tanks, 25,000 gallons each. Like I said, the Corps pulled them out. However, they left remedial contamination within the site that we can't close the site out unless we do the remediation and work with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. So the scope for the contractor, Sumco Eco Contracting, will be to remove and disposal of PCB and petroleum impacted soils, legally disposing at approved licensed facilities, securing the site with protective fencing, installing a dewatering treatment system, which is necessary because when you're doing deep excavations, there's a lot of groundwater in the park, so we have to dewater that through a filtration system. There's a removal of an abandoned asbestos smokestack. That's this unit right here. That's got asbestos-containing lining within the smokestack itself. And then once we're done with the excavation, removal and disposal at a legal facility, we'll install clean backfill. So bids were received in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 3039M. We received bids on March 28th, and we got 4 bids received before the noon deadline. Sumco Eco Contracting was the lowest eligible responsible bidder. Therefore, we request to award that to them, Mr. Chairman. Any questions, just take them at this time.
Any questions from the board?
I have one question. Paul, where is the soil disposal facility located? Where the soil goes?
Yep, very good question. As part of our solicitation, we had that requested of them, indicating where their proposed facilities was. Right now, it's all based upon characterization, what it is, what's the quantity of contamination, and whether or not that facility is a legal facility that accepts that material. So for what we have for this project, it'll be in New Hampshire.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions and a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Item number 8, request authorization to advertise an invitation for bids for the bulkhead rehabilitation at East Jetty within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Paul.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. The East Jetty is a pile-supported concrete deck structure located at the northeast corner of the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. That's down in this extreme area down here. As part of the East Jetty infrastructure, there exists a steel bulkhead which separates the salt water from the mainland in the usable area of 3 Dolphin Way. That's basically a stay-in-place steel piece of sheeting that's driven into the ground, keeps the land on one side, keeps the water out on the other. It was probably installed around 1940-45 by the United States federal government, and it's just beyond its normal lifespan. Significant corrosion in the bulkhead has created large sinkholes, and constant patching and temporary repairs that have been done in the past. The bulkhead has now surpassed its normal lifespan. Childs Engineering Corporation, working with the Capital Construction Department, has been designing the project to rehabilitate the bulkhead by designing a new concrete bulkhead behind the present steel bulkhead. The new concrete bulkhead wall will be approximately 460 feet in length. It will protect the topside land and surrounding structures at 3 Dolphin Way. Permitting for this project is complete, and we received our final order of conditions from the Conservation Commission, and construction bids will be in accordance with Mass General Law 3039M. Once we go out to bid, we get lowest eligible responsible contractor. We'll come back to the board and get approval.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you very
Paul.
much.
Item number 9, personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. We have some personnel items for your consideration on the EDIC agenda today. We have 4 appointments with further details listed on your review in the board memo. The first is Joseph Blankenship. He'd be a Senior Transportation Planner 2 in the Planning Division. Kevin Liu, Human Resources Specialist in the Human Resources Department. Jonathan Macraz, to be appointed Interim Deputy Director of Youth Opportunity Unlimited in the Office of Workforce Development. And Samantha Medeiros, Junior Finance Coordinator in the Budget and Finance Department. We have 2 employment service contractors We have 2 employment service contractors both in the Office of Workforce Development with details listed in the board memo for your review and consideration. The first is Mark Bemis, Workforce and Policy Development, and Maya Getter, Boston Tax Coalition Department. We have 4 travel items for your consideration with details listed in the board memos. Number 1 is Alan Gentle, Manager of the Office of Financial Empowerment at Roxbury Center. 2 is Victoria Phillips, Planning Assistant. And from the Economic Development Division, Crystal Torman, Senior Advisor, and Midori Morikawa, Director of Business Strategy. And finally, we have 5 departures with details listed in the board memo. Number 1 is Lene Banks, Payroll Manager. 2 is Marianne Elitzer, Director of Talent Management. 3 is Ricky Grant, Deputy Director of Youth Opportunity Unlimited. 4 is Caitlin Sullivan, Senior Project Manager, and Cassandra White, Assistant Deputy Director of Youth Services. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. And I need a motion to adjourn the EDIC meeting.
I move we adjourn the EDIC meeting.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, meeting adjourned. So, the open meeting law requires that anyone recording this meeting identify themselves, and also that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. So is there anyone else here recording this meeting, or? None? Okay, well, thank you. The first item on the agenda is request authorization for the approval of the minutes of March 4th, 2019 meeting. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Before I get to the next item, I see Councilor Baker's here, and I know you had another engagement you had to attend tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, thank you for allowing me to speak here today. I'm here to speak in support of the newly designed and improved dot block development project. This project seeks to convert a now blighted, mostly empty 5-acre parcel of land in the area of Dorchester Avenue and Hancock, Greenmount, and Pleasant Streets into a vibrant destination for all to enjoy. This project will clean up an area well known for illegal and unpleasant behavior. In addition, it will bring much-needed housing, commercial, and green space. It will create a welcoming pedestrian connection from Meeting House Hill through the property to the Savin Hill MBTA station. The community process for this project has taken nearly 6 years and well over 100 meetings. That's an understatement. The most recent iteration provides for not only a better design, but also more affordable housing options and a Dorchester residential preference. As part of the inclusionary development program, dot block is generating 66 affordable units on site. 51 will be 70% AMI and 15 will be 50% AMI. Half of the affordable units will be neighborhood diversity preservation preference units, so that 33 of them will be set aside for Dorchester residents living within 3/4 of a mile of dot block. I'm going to say that again. Half of the affordable units will be neighborhood diversity preservation preference units, so 33 of them will be set aside for Dorchester residents living within 3/4 of a mile of dot block. The developers are committed to having an office on or near site with language translation services to specifically help Dorchester residents fill out sometimes confusing and lengthy financial forms they will need to qualify for the housing lottery process. Every day that I serve the residents of Dorchester is a privilege for me, and it's my sincere hope that the board will agree with me that dot block will have a positive impact on our community as a whole and will support this development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming by tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read the next 4 items, and then we'll have one vote. Item number 2 is request authorization to schedule a public hearing on May 16th, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the 1241 Boylston Street project as a development impact project. Item number 3, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on May 16th, 2019 at 5:40 p.m. or at a time and date to be determined by the director to consider the 15 Arlington Street Taj Hotel Boston as a development impact project. Item number 4, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on May 16th, 2019 at 5:50 p.m. or at a time and date to be determined by the director to consider the 15 through 19 Congress Street downtown notice of project change as a development impact project. And item number 5, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on May 16th, 2019 at 6 p.m. or at a time and date to be determined by the director to consider the development plan for Planned Development Area Number 123, 20 Clinton Street, Dock Square, also known as Parcel E-8, in the downtown waterfront Faneuil Hall urban renewal area. Are motions in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 6 is the Board of Appeal. Are there any changes, Jeff, to the?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. 35 petitions have been prepared for your transmittal to the ZBA. No changes were made. These recommendations will cover the April 25th subcommittee meeting and the April 30th full meeting.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very
Thank
much. If people would like a seat, there are some seats out in the hallway, and this is being televised, and there's sound out there also. If you're uncomfortable and you prefer to sit outside in the hallway, you're welcome to do that. I would love to just be here if it's open meeting, right? You can be here. I'm trying to make it more comfortable for you. If there's a seat outside, if you feel like sitting down, that's all.
And
So, item number 7, request authorization to petition the zoning commission to adopt a text amendment to the zoning code to allow for the additional dwelling units in the neighborhood districts. Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to mention, I think they also open up the Collab Lab, which also has live streaming, so there's more place to sit down as well. It's a packed house in the hallway as well. Chairman Burke, Secretary Palhimas, Director Golden, members of the board. My name is Brian Glasscock. I'm Deputy Director for Regulatory Planning and Zoning. I was about to say, the City of Boston's been working for about the last 18 months or so on the additional dwelling unit pilot program that we rolled out. The ADU pilot program was rolled out in 3 neighborhoods, East Boston, Mattapan, and Jamaica Plain. In a moment, I'll introduce Marcy Osberg from Department of Neighborhood Development, who can talk a little bit more about some of the theory behind it. But as you may recall, this was an opportunity, it was a pilot program to test out the theory that there were some larger buildings, some larger homes, 1, 2, and 3 family use around the city that could be divided without and create additional dwelling units without changing the character of the building, without adding to the exterior at all, and in some cases actually bringing pre-existing illegal units up to code and making them legal. But in order to accommodate this, we needed to make some changes to the zoning code. What we're proposing now is to take the lessons learned in that 18-month pilot and extend them to other neighborhoods in the city that are under neighborhood zoning, and to make the program permanent. So I guess I will turn it over to Marcy, and then we'll be available for questions afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brian, and nice to be in front of all you. I'm Marcy Osberg with the Department of Neighborhood Development. So, and just a quick refresher, I was in front of you talking about this in November of 2017 when we initially got the pilot launched. But just a quick refresher, ADUs are a new typology to Boston that allows owner-occupants to carve out space within the envelope of their home for a new rental unit. We piloted this in 3 neighborhoods. The purpose here is to increase the opportunity for low-cost housing for renters, and to increase opportunity for small landlords and keep homeowners in place, all leading towards the Mayor's Housing 2030 goals. We've been working on this since 2016, 3 years ago, and we've had many pieces of public process throughout in the winter of 2016, holding community meetings in the summer of 2017, and again just recently, where we had 3 public meetings across the city with almost 100 attendees. Who can apply for this? You must be an owner-occupant to apply. In the pilot, you had to be in one of the 3 pilot neighborhoods, but we're proposing removing that component. The ADU you're proposing must be within the envelope of your home, not a backyard unit. And it must be that your home is, if you're doing a basement unit, not in the floodplain. So what are you able to do with this? The zoning allowances are that will be exempt from floor area ratio, exempt from from occupancy limits, and exempt from parking, additional parking. So that helps speed up the process to add this unit. And a key component here is it still must meet all code requirements. So these must be safe units and habitable units. So what does that look like? Here's some examples. We are not talking about attached or detached or adding bump outs, but we are talking about attics and basements and carve out units. What did we find from the pilot? We had 72 applicants. Actually, that's increased since this data was pulled in February. So there's been a lot of interest in this. However, we've seen that it's not feasible for everyone who's interested. And so we've had 12 permits issued to date, 2 certificates of occupancy. We also found in the data that almost all of these were basement units. And all neighborhoods were represented in applicants, and 1, 2, and 3 family homes were all also represented in the applicants. We got a lot of requests to add additional neighborhoods, which is why we're back in front of you, and to extend the program. We had 47 individual inquiries about adding additional neighborhoods, and since we've been back out to the public, we've had, again, nearly 50. In addition, we did a survey to the applicants, and most were very satisfied with the program. They did suggest some improvements. So we are improving the toolkit that's available online to increase information about budgeting and code requirements. We're also streamlining the process further to make it even faster. And we recently, the mayor's budget announced that we have $650,000 for loans for applicants to this program, which is great. That'll create about 20 additional units. I'm going to turn it back over to Brian, who will talk about what does this look like in zoning.
Thank you. So, as Marcy pointed out, there are a couple of components in this that we need to address when we're amending the zoning, and we're here today to ask for your recommendation to the Zoning Commission to allow for ADUs to be allowed in all neighborhood zoning districts. There are some of the downtown districts that are covered as part of the base code that are really not appropriate for additional dwelling units, and they have other pathways to adding units within their structures. So ADUs are going to really only apply in the neighborhoods, and I think there's a map here in a moment. And the other component is making them permanent beyond the 18-month pilot phase that we'd included 18 months ago. Here's the map that shows you where we started on the left, East Boston, Jamaica Plain, and Mattapan. Our proposal is to allow them in nearly all the other neighborhoods, except for downtown and waterfront neighborhoods, and in the Longwood Medical area, not really appropriate for that either. So here's an example of what the zoning language would look like. This is essentially what we've got in place now, except for that last half sentence that sets the time limits. That's the sunset clause. Also needs a definition. So each neighborhood zoning article would get an additional, incorporate this definition for additional dwelling units. Other communities around the country have worked with variations on this same concept. Some of them allow conversion of garages or tiny houses in the backyard and that sort of thing. Boston, we haven't done that. We're focusing on these kinds of units within the existing building envelope. We think that's a prudent first step. See how this works out. Oh, yeah. Thank you. I'm going to also invite Representative Councilor Edwards' office to come and speak on this, but I did want to mention that we were about to go before you last month, and we were urged to go back out and seek some more input from the community, which we did. We held 2 more public meetings in Hyde Park and in Allston Brighton. Got a lot of good questions. Concerns sort of that you always get around things like parking and so on, and how does this match with the code. Commissioner Christopher was with us and was able, I think, satisfy people's concerns about health and safety. But as Marcy mentioned, building code still applies, sanitary code still applies, fire code, electrical, plumbing, all still apply. They have to meet those minimum code requirements and be safe and habitable. By and large, there was a lot of support for it, despite those few criticisms, and people wanted to know how to apply and when was this going to be open, because they're ready to go. But I'll turn this over to Councilor Edwards' office.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Thank you. My name is Joel Will. I'm the policy director for Councilor Edwards. Councilor Edwards represents District 1, East Boston, Charlestown on the north end, and chairs the Committee on Housing and Community Development. We just wanted to thank the BPDA, Neighborhood Development, the Housing Innovation Lab, and ISD for, as well as community members who participated, who struggled through some of the bumps in working through figuring out how to make the ADUs work in Boston. Councilor Edwards is strongly supportive of ending the sunset and expanding it to other neighborhood districts. As a small landlord herself, and as the chair of Housing Community Development, see this as an opportunity to really create more housing supply in a responsible way, and for small property owners to, legally, safely use, make use of spaces to house more Bostonians. I think some of the important things of the pilot, Marcy and others did really wonderful work in assessing what are the barriers to people actually making use of this. We're reviewing the budget right now, and pleased to be doing so in anticipation of upcoming hearings. But one of the aspects is, do people have the financial resources to bring spaces up to code to be suitable for this? And that is something the administration is looking to support property owners in doing. We're in total agreement with that. Very excited that that's something, so that this is a more accessible program, and that it's a way to promote low-cost housing options. As we move forward, representing a waterfront district in particular, living in one, the council just wanted to add, that to the extent we're able to think about how we combine this with future sort of resiliency upgrades, so that in waterfront areas we might be able to do more of this as well. That would be a good thing to think about going forward. But having some of the more financial support options, loan options for adding the ADUs is going to be a big help. Again, we give credit to D&D and the Housing Innovation Lab for, in particular, for thinking through what kind of supports people need to make it work. So we asked the board advance the zoning text application, and we hope it's adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Does that...
Good afternoon. My name is Buddy Christopher. I'm the building commissioner for the city of Boston. And I've been part of the team for the additional dwelling units since its inception. We've gone through all the pilot program from the beginning. Two of the major objectives about this whole program was to add more housing that's affordable to our residents and to our neighbors into the project, while at the very same time preserving our communities and our neighborhoods. The involvement, I've been to all of the community meetings. The overwhelming sentiment is positive for this, because it does all the things that we've been trying to do for housing in a way that is least detrimental to the city. And I just want to be on the record of ISD being very much in support of this, as well as the mayor being very much in support of it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for coming tonight. Brian, does that conclude your presentation?
That concludes the presentation. We're available for questions.
All right, are there any questions from the board?
I have a question. I had seen the data that you presented on your data page, where in 18 months this has resulted in actually 2 units being created, which doesn't seem a pace of creation that is really keeping up with the clear demand in the city. So can you talk about what goals you have for this program, and is there a way to loosen up these restrictions more quickly so that we can actually create more units more quickly?
Thank you for that question. So we're doing 2 things to help increase the number that are created. One is we're further streamlining the process. So we used to have an online application, an in-person review session with ISD, BPDA, and D&D, and then a permit meeting. And we're actually just going to jump right to the permit meeting now. but allow residents who need that extra design support will still have that as optional but not required. So we think that'll shorten the time it takes for a resident to go from idea to actually having the permit while still giving the support. The other piece that we found was a major barrier when we did the review with applicants was funding. And so we think that this loan opportunity that the mayor just put in his budget will really help more people be able to take advantage of this.
And have you quantified the potential number of units that could be created through this program?
It's really hard to do because even if we evaluate by zoning code what would be available, it's still a lot on the homeowner to take that opportunity to do that, cost and time to add that unit. So we were not able to come up with an exact number.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are there any further questions from the board? Go right ahead.
It's really a kind of a comment, but a question also. Buddy, Marcy, and Brian, I commend Mayor Walsh for what he's trying to do. It's a pretty creative way to create some housing. I think it is still a good kept secret. I know it's only in those neighborhoods, and I support expanding it, no doubt. My question is, Buddy, so what if someone goes to do it, will it not trigger an FAR violation? Is that something that's looked aside?
No. This program is to avoid the FAR situation as long as we do not put any additions to the building itself.
Okay.
So we're capturing space otherwise not used in the building for living area. And again, this is not meant to be the answer to housing. This is a small step, but it's another tool that we're going to be able to have so that our residents will be able to have affordable housing.
Yeah, completely agree. If it doesn't have currently doesn't have rear egress, right? So obviously it wouldn't be allowed. Can you still go through the ZBA to get an approval, or you wouldn't have to go through the ZBA? As long as you bring it up to code, rear egress, ceiling heights, things that typically would trip ZBA approval are waived from what I understand.
Yeah, the building has to meet all current codes. There is no compromise on life safety for any of the residents in the building. Some of the projects that they've brought to us, we have sat with the design team and we have found ways for them to get some of these egress issues, the public access to utilities and things like that. So it's a very creative process to get this thing put together, and we're looking for creative concepts when we do this, whether you use your basement or your attic, or if you have a large footplate in the house, if you subdivide the actual footplate and still are able to achieve the building code issues. We're very open to that discussion, and we work with all of the applicants that come in.
And is there a square foot minimum?
No, there is not.
Okay, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to remind everyone of the statement that I read at the beginning of these hearings, and that is that if you're recording this, even using your cell phones, the open meeting law requires that you identify yourself so that we all know who's doing what around here. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I just want to remind you of that. Sir, there's someone over here?
She said she was recording.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Anyone else filming, recording?
I'm not doing it right now, but I may record. My name is Kelly Reddy.
Okay, thank you very much. Good. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right. Okay, Raymond what? Okay. Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else?
Also recording back here. Johnny with AirW.
Okay, thank you. Let me get to item number 8. Request authorization to award final designation to P-3 Partners LLC as redeveloper of a portion of parcel P-3 and a portion of parcel P-3H in the Campus High School urban renewal area, and to adopt a confirmatory order of taking to take all related actions. Dana?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Secretary Paul Hemus.
The action before us today is a major milestone in the process related to the designation for the redevelopment of parcel P3, and in particular, the work that has been done with the development team of P3 Partners. This is also part of a series of actions that will be taken in follow-up to action we took last month, but also in continuance, and I'll say more about that momentarily. As you're aware, this particular project has received regulatory approvals like its Article 80 approval, like its approval from the Boston Civic Design Commission, its approval from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, and most recently, the Zoning Commission with regard to its proposed planned development area as recently as last month. The development team will speak more specifically to a lot of the very important questions that were asked the last time that we were before you, particularly with regard to issues around the retail component of the project, the issues around climate resiliency and the way in which the project will promote and help to enhance that, and also the issues around the transportation and planning context of this project. You'll hear more about that during the presentation. But I'd like to take a few moments and speak to a few important highlights of this project and what this particular milestone means with its forward momentum and with your hopeful vote to approve the final designation. First of all, the work that we'll be doing today with this action is to deal with confirmatory order of taking, which is a sort of technical term which speaks to the creation of new internal streets that will be supported by Public Improvements Commission. As you will recall from last month, we talked about the proposed relocation of the sewer and utility lines that has been approved by Boston Water and Sewer Commission. With these confirmatory order of takings, we deal with the issues around paper streets and the internal network that will be created in the project. Point number one. Point number two is around housing creation. As you know, this particular development proposes upwards of 718 units of housing. The development team will seek to create 20% of those units as affordable. And that is, as you know, in excess of the required inclusionary development policy levels. Similarly, as was stated on an earlier project, because of the location of the Tremont Crossing development, we will seek to utilize the neighborhood designation preference, which will allow for up to half of the affordable units to be made eligible or accessible to those who live within a three-quarters of a mile distance from the project. That will be a very important component in terms of a very key community stakeholder consideration around not only the creation of affordable housing, but the opportunity for that affordable housing to be utilized by those who live in the neighborhood. Financing. The development team has been working over the last several months to secure not only mezzanine loan financing for the first phase of infrastructure and site development, but also to secure an equity partner in the form of Landmark Properties to assist not only with the creation of the housing, but also the overall development and securing of equity for the project. Finally, I would speak to the issue of civic engagement and stakeholder involvement. As we all know, the parcel P3 exists within the purview of the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan. The Strategic Master Plan Oversight Committee has been involved with the review and the designation, but there also will be continued, even after this vote tonight, there will be continued stakeholder engagement with quarterly meetings with the Project Review Committee that is a subset of the Oversight Committee. And I should note that this has been a good opportunity as well because we have recently named new members not only to the Oversight Committee, but also to the Project Review Committees that are associated with those projects. So this has been a process that has sought to engage and recruit and involve new opportunities for leadership for stakeholders. I mentioned earlier in my presentation that there will be additional votes and opportunities for you to receive updates. We will be seeking in the future months to serve as co-petitioner for upcoming Public Improvements Commission actions. And we'll also be looking to come before you with regard to the scheduling of related public hearings, particularly as relates to the securing of certain subsidies. For example, a housing creation proposal, which will be coming forward in the future, will come to this board for approval of recommendation. And I would like to say that those will be opportunities during which we, staff, will share with you where the development team is making progress. And as you know, final designations do last for a particular period of time, but I think it's important for a project of this magnitude that we commit to providing you with updates on a regular basis when the development team has reached certain milestones. We'll also be doing the same sort of update and review with the Stakeholder Project Review Committee. I will conclude my remarks there. The development team has some very detailed information to share with you with regard to some of the components that were asked about last time, and will certainly be available to take questions afterwards. With that, I would like to bring Barry Gaither to the stand.
Okay, thank you, Dana.
Good afternoon. I'm a 50-year resident of Roxbury. I direct the National Center of Afro-American Artists, and I'm a member of Elma Lewis Partners, which was created by the National Center of Afro-American Artists to carry forward a transformative vision of Roxbury, a vision in which jobs and commerce and economic development paralleled the development in the arts and culture, resulting in a vision of Roxbury as a destination. When the National Center created the Elma Lewis Partners sought a partner to work with it and found that partner in Felco Development, and together they created P3 Partners, which is the proponent of the present development. This development repairs a giant tear at the heart of Roxbury from when land was taken at the end of the 60s. It's the last significant piece of that material. This is our opportunity to capture that land and to make it have an impact that will be inspirational and supportive of the development of residents of Roxbury, of their children, and of the integration of Roxbury into the larger economy of the city of Boston and of the region. That's the opportunity we seek to move forward.
Thank you very much.
Director Golden, Secretary Polimus, ladies and gentlemen of the board. At the last board meeting in March, I was asked a series of 4 questions to answer at this meeting, and we are prepared to do so as part of our presentation. My nephew Jeff will respond to 3 of the questions in his remarks, and I will concentrate on the question of the financial relationship between the NCAA Museum and P3 Partners. Approximately 9 years ago, my family business, Felco Development Corp., entered into a formal business arrangement with Elma Lewis Partners to memorialize the financial relationship between our 2 entities that was centered around the concept of bringing commerce and culture together on a sustaining basis. The essence of this initiative was to have the commerce part of the collaboration build and outfit a world-class museum on parcel P3 and gift this facility to the NCAA free of debt. In addition, Elma Lewis Partners was to be given an ownership stake in the overall development such that it would also have the benefits of cash flow and liquidity events to assist in the operation of the museum on a yearly basis. These goals have been indelible in our mission as the designated developers of parcel P3, and I want to ensure the board and the community of our commitment to this achievement. As we have previously outlined, this project will be built in potentially 3 phases that will incorporate all of the uses and amenities that will briefly be highlighted in our presentation. As such, it will take approximately 3 to 5 years before Tremont Crossing achieves its full economic potential. We at Felco Development are committed to this initiative with the same level of commitment we have to the community of Roxbury to transform this vacant piece of land into a thriving and vibrant city within a city that will not only provide jobs and opportunities on multiple levels, but also to create a place, a destination, and a landmark that Roxbury can call its own. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Feldman. I'm a vice president at Feldco Development and also a member of P3 Partners. I think I'll start by just acknowledging what Ted Landsmark mentioned at our last board meeting, that Tremont Crossing is the largest, most significant development project in recent history in Roxbury and most likely into the near future. And because of that, we have a tremendous responsibility and how that projects onto a reflection of this community. And we realize that at the center of that, and has always been at the center of that, is the Museum of the National Center of Afro-American Artists. A lot of times people talk about physical and economic displacement, but rarely do people talk about cultural displacement. And in the case of this project, the cultural elements of the museum are going to permeate every element of this project going forward. Okay, I'm being encouraged to be brief, but I would just say that this is reflected in this two-story pavilion that's going to have transparency. It's directly adjacent to probably one of our greatest public benefits, which is this Central Plaza, where people from the community can come and have a safe place to congregate and spend time, and the museum will be at the center of that. Again, here, this is just another angle of the museum, and you can see its prominence along Tremont Street. This is getting to one of Mr. Landmark's questions from the last meeting. In addition to the physical and transcendent elements of the museum, or the necessity that they be indelible. Specifically, it was mentioned that retail played a significant role in the economic viability of this project, and specifically that BJ's Wholesale Club was our retail anchor. I wanted to point out, firstly, that BJ's is doing fantastic. They just last month announced their fourth quarter earnings. They had a record-breaking year with 3.7% same-store sales for their sixth straight quarterly increase. By any account, these are phenomenal results for any retailer. And accordingly, I would just point out that Amazon, and when everybody talks about the future paradigm of retail, has actually been rumored to want to buy BJ's the same way they did with Whole Foods. So you have an online retailer that people see as destroying the brick and mortar industry looking to buy BJ's because of the fact that they see it as having an indelible presence in the streetscape of our communities. I'd also would say that BJ's serves as an anchor for this community. It's not only an anchor for this project, but it's an anchor for Dudley Square. I think, unfortunately, we all know that some of the retailers in Dudley Square have been struggling as of late, and we know that by bringing regional draws like BJ's, the 10-screen Regal Cinemas, and some of the other really dynamic uses to this project, it's going to return a focus to Dudley Square. And also, Mr. Landsmark had mentioned that there's some parking that's necessitated and associated with this retail, and we also see that this parking becomes an economic benefit for the community. Getting back to the fact that there's this new paradigm of retail, we've tried to internet-proof ourselves, so to speak, by focusing on entertainment, health and fitness, and food, and really feel that these are the types of retail uses that are going to withstand the test of time. I'd also point out that 70% of our retail is pre-leased, with either leases that have been signed or are out for execution. And this is really the magic number, the threshold that we need to get construction financing. I'd also point out that even though our retail program is very strong and we feel very confident in it, that it represents 34% of the total rentable square feet at the project, and that there are 66% of other uses that represent the financial viability of this project, including the office and the 2 residential towers. The other question that Mr. Lamech had that I wanted to focus on is our water resiliency. He pointed to the Fort Hill Tower, which I was aware of and had seen many times in the past, but until recently I hadn't really explored its historical significance. And I can see that it's sort of allegorically related to the historical prevalence of water resiliency in Roxbury. And even though the tower is no longer functional, most of the infrastructure that's below it still has tentacles into Roxbury and actually extends into Parcel 3 and relates to a lot of the infrastructure initiatives that I'm going to talk about right now. We are certainly prepared for resiliency. That starts with the Climate Ready Boston initiative. It's a citywide set of standards relating to climate change and preparedness, particularly related to stormwater and flooding. One of the requirements of Climate Ready Boston is that every development project create a climate change preparedness checklist, which we did. It was in our most recent approvals filing, which was approved by this board. And that relates to the infrastructure, specifically related to protecting public rights of ways, and also to our Stony Brook Interceptor, which is a large sewer main that we're going to be relocating. Specifically related to the infrastructure, I think it's difficult to see here, but you can see from what's up on the screen that there are various locations that are outlined in green. These are our proposed locations for underground infiltration systems. Our stormwater will be collected and treated on site, and then will be rerouted to these subsurface infiltration systems in an effort to reduce the impact on Boston water and sewer drainage systems. And in terms of a standard, on-site will be designed with a capacity of 1 inch, only overflowing to tax the city system in extreme storm situations. The other specific infrastructure initiative that Mr. Landmarks mentioned was our proposed Stony Brook sewer relocation. One of the key benefits is that older brick pipelines have cracks or breaks, which are all potential sources of groundwater infiltration. Certainly Boston Water and Sewer Commission was supportive of us replacing 1,000 linear feet of over 100-year-old pipe with new state-of-the-art system. Mr. Landmark had made note of the fact that there is a portion that was reflected as going underneath a loading bay of our project. I would point out this is a temporary situation where even though it's being designed to go underneath the building, in all likelihood that will be replaced by a section of pipe that will go across Whittier Street and onto a new public way that's being created by the Choice Neighborhoods Project. And in all likelihood, that rerouting will happen before anyone actually inhabits these buildings. Next, I'd like to turn to our traffic context. It was pointed out at our last meeting that the Longwood Medical Area uses Tremont Street for access to hospitals and ambulatory routes, particularly coming from the South Bay and the South Shore. It also serves as a connectivity to Lower Roxbury and downtown and the neighborhoods to the southwest. And it also impacts local businesses, including those in Dudley Square. So we are certainly aware of the essential traffic corridor that Tremont serves. The way we studied this was with what's called a synchro traffic model. And what that does is it looks at all of the development in the area that's existing and in the future, and it looks to model, in a computer model, what the traffic impacts of the project would be. We looked at a baseline for existing traffic. We projected 5 years out into the future, both with and without building Tremont Crossing. And we were instructed in our conversations by Boston Transportation Department and BTD to focus on 5 key intersections along Tremont Street, being at Melnia Cass, Ruggles, Whittier, Prentice, and Malcolm X. And you can see this list of potential mitigation measures, but I think it's probably more clearly seen visually. And what we've really done is maintain clear drive lanes all along Tremont Street. We've done this by proposing widening, by carving out the parking lane that's adjacent to the police headquarters, and also giving up a portion of right-of-way that will be on what's now parcel P3. And it's a little difficult to see here because of the resolution, but to kind of paraphrase, what we've done is make sure that we've created dedicated left turn lanes, both going in and out of the project in every location, coordinate signals, and make sure that there are minimal traffic impacts from the project. And I would point out that at these 5 intersections, with 3 of them, if we compare on a Saturday peak hour, which is really the height of retail traffic, that there is absolutely no impact to 3 of these intersections. We've actually created a beneficial situation in one, and in one is slightly less. So given the significant benefits that we're bringing to Roxbury, the jobs, the vitality, the economic benefit, the fact that we're able to do this with minimal to no traffic impact is something I think we're very happy about. Okay, I've been instructed to stop. Clearly, if folks are interested in looking at the job that we're creating and the economic development potential, they can look online, and we're certainly available to answer any further questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Dana, does that conclude your presentation?
That does conclude the presentation, unless there are questions.
something to the presentation.
Yeah, this is not a public hearing, ma'am.
I'm a member of the development team.
Did she represent you?
I'm a member of this team.
Yeah, she is.
Okay, I'm confused. Is she part of the
in
presentation?
our managing of the presentation today, I was not made aware of an additional presenter.
I
So
have 2 minutes. I want to say something for 2 minutes.
No, excuse me. Could the first gentleman that you spoke,
yes. Mr. Gaither.
No, I'm sorry, the developer.
Feldman. Father.
Pardon?
Is this woman a part of your team?
Yes, she is associated.
Do you want
with
her to speak? I'm not clear. I mean, what?
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Thank you. My name is Margaret Burnham. I'm the director of the, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. I just want to say, I want to add to the statements made by my team members here. I'm a director of the National Center of Afro-American Artists, not a director, but a co-chairman of the board of the National Center of Afro-American Artists, and a member of the Elma Lewis Partnership, which is one of the 2 partners constituting P3. And I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Elma Lewis Partners here today. I don't want to reiterate what Mr. Gaither said about this being a profound moment in that it gives us an opportunity to recognize the contributions of Elma Lewis to this city and her vision for Roxbury and her vision for the place of the arts in our broader Boston community as well as in Roxbury. This permanent designation will, we expect and we hope, allow the National Center of Afro-American Artists and the museum to become a jewel among the city's great cultural institutions. For our partnership with Felco gives us the opportunity to develop both the museum, to build the museum, and to provide financial support for the operations of the museum far into the future. This museum is the central public benefit of the P3 project. So we at Elma Lewis Partners and at Felco fully expect that we together will complete the project in a manner that will benefit all the residents of the city, and that will have a particular engagement with the residents of Roxbury and the city's other minority communities that have long been ignored in the development of this city. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
All right, Dana, does that conclude your presentation, Dana?
Yes.
Okay, are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Okay, we're going to go to item number 9. Item number 9. Can we have some order, please? Request authorization to enter into a short-term license agreement within the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation for use of parking lot number 1 at Bunker Hill Community College on parcel 15B, located at Rutherford Avenue in the Charlestown Urban Renewal Area for staging access for the Esplanade 4th of July celebration. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, Boston Planning and Development Agency owns the 4-acre parking lots adjacent to the Bunker Hill Community College, which are currently utilized primarily for student and facility and faculty parking. The Commonwealth Department of Conservation and Recreation is asked to use a portion of the parking lots from June 20th through July 9th to store vehicles, message boards, and parking, all to be used towards logistical operations for the 4th of July celebration. Due to the public benefit proposed, no fee is proposed.
All right. Go ahead, Dennis. Please continue.
Sure. As I said, the Department of Conservation and Recreation is asked to use the parking lots that are owned by the BPDA adjacent to Bunker Hill Community College to support the 4th of July celebration. Due to the public benefit, we're proposing no fee.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Dennis. Item number 10, request authorization to enter into a license agreement with the Northeastern University for the use of BRA-owned property known as Ruggles Place in Roxbury for university-sponsored events. Dennis.
I'm
Thank
going
you,
to
Mr.
recuse
Chairman.
myself.
And Mr. Landmark's going to recuse himself, but go right ahead, Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you said, BPDA owns a 50,000 square foot parcel of land commonly known as Ruggles Plaza in the general vicinity of Columbus Avenue and portions of the Northeastern University campus. For the past several years, Northeastern University has requested to use the land during the warmer months to host outdoor activities designed to benefit not only students but the neighborhood residents as well, farmers markets, food trucks, music, etc. We're requesting permission to again license the property to Northeastern University for a 6-month period commencing June 1st, 2019. And once again, due to the public benefit and short duration of the license, no fee is proposed. And in both of them, BPDA will be adequately insured.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 11, request authorization to amend the ground lease with CVPA Chain Forge LLC, tenant and redeveloper of Building 105, also known as the Chain Forge Building, located on a portion of parcel NY-1 in the historic monument area of the Charlestown Navy Yard, allowing additional time to close on construction and equity financing and to obtain necessary permits and approvals. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In December of 2017, BPDA and CVPA Chain Forge LLC, herein referred to as the developer, executed a ground lease for the development of the Chain Forge building into 230-room hotel. Under the terms and conditions of the lease, the developer would be in default of the lease in the event that they did not obtain building permits and financing by a date certain. In January of this year, the board authorized to extend an extension of the time to complete the financing and obtain building permits through April 30th of 2019. We're in the final stages of BPDA approval for development and site plans, and the developer is ready and willing to apply to at ISD for building plans. We're requesting what we anticipate to be a final extension to close on the complicated financing of this historic redevelopment. As I mentioned in the January meeting, a very small wrinkle had developed since October where the National Park Service alerted both BPDA and the developer to federal regulations that require language in the lease pertaining to the definition and calculation of, quote, excess profits, which the developer would be required to reinvest into the Charlestown Navy Yard preservation. BPDA, National Park Service, and the developer have been working together diligently to develop appropriate language and a calculation which we believe will be acceptable to the National Park Service. what I've learned over the last couple months is that there is no boilerplate language that can serve as a catch-all for every project nationally. And to their credit, the National Park Service is considering each project individually and on its own merit. It's just taking a little longer than we would like, but we're very close to resolving that issue. And the developer will not be able to close on the financing until we can amend the lease to reflect that. You may also know that the Chain Forge building is located within the Federal Opportunity Zone, which was created in 2017. Generally speaking, the program affords equity investors additional tax incentives to invest within the Opportunity Zone. The developer has identified 3 different investors that meet the requirements of the program, and the developer is in the process of finalizing the legal arrangements to take advantage of the program, which is still in its infancy, so the private sector and federal government are working out the kinks, quite frankly. We're requesting permission to amend the lease to extend the deadline for both final financing and final building permits to July 31st of 2019, and to further amend the lease to reflect the excess profit language required by the federal government.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much, Dennis.
Thank you.
Item number 12, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals for funds for the affordable housing in Chinatown. Tim?
Thank you, Chairman Burke and members of the board. I'm here today to request permission to release a request for proposals for $650,000 in funds for affordable housing in Chinatown. In December 2002, the BRA, as represented for the City of Boston, entered into a memorandum of understanding between the Chinese Progressive Association, Simon So, and 1025 Hancock Street, the developer of the Liberty Place project, as part of a settlement between the CPA and the City of Boston Board of Appeals. As a result of this MOU, the BPDA is holding $650,000 in funds for affordable housing in Chinatown, recognizing the strong need for affordable housing in Chinatown at this time, and at request of the CPA, it was felt that this was the time to release a new RFP. Only proposals located in the Chinatown neighborhood will be considered. The MOU specifically called out a goal of creating single-room occupancy housing. As such, this goal will be a preference within the RFP, but other affordable housing projects will be considered for the funding. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Are there any questions on the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 13, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals for waterborne activities vendor license along the Charlestown Navy Yard, waterfront, and on the Little Mystic Channel boat ramp. John.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Secretary, members of the board. The BPDA requests approval to advertise and issue a request for proposals from qualified parties to enter into 1 or 2 license agreements for public waterborne activities such as a kayak, canoe, and/or paddleboard vending opportunities at the Charlestown Navy Yard waterfront and/or the Little Mystic Channel boat ramp. As you may recall, last month we came forward and you guys approved, the board approved several activities to activate the Navy Yard. One such was a paddleboard company. However, the BPDA was unable to award a license to the kayak vendor during this original RFP process due to concerns related to either the specific location of the operations, the term of the license, and the degree of financial support required by the BPDA to provide for this activation. This second RFP is meant to clarify these issues with the goal of providing activation this summer.
Okay, thank you, John. Are there any questions on the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 14. Request authorization to execute an emergency construction contract with Fleming Brothers, Inc. for the safety containment barrier around the northwest corner of Building 108 in the Charlestown Navy Yard in an amount not to exceed $290,608 and to take all related actions. Paul.
Thank you very much again, Mr. Chairman. Building 108 is located in the Charlestown Navy Yard, and it's approximately 32,000 square feet of a multi-level structure. It was a former Navy Yard power plant. It was transferred to the BRA in 1974, and it's been remained unoccupied since for over 45 years. I know that picture's not the greatest one you can look at, but generally here's the existing building here, Building 108. Here's the rope walk building here, and along here is Chelsea Street. The steel frame with brick masonry, steel trusses, and wood frame roof, it's in extreme poor condition, and several roof collapses has been ongoing for several years. Excuse me, and the masonry is deteriorated throughout. The building is considered a hazardous condition to the general public and to the BPDA. The building contains various types of contamination, including asbestos material, lead-based paint, petroleum contamination, and PCBs. As you may recall from last month's board meeting, we spoke about a violation notice that we received on February 7th at the Inspection Services Department, issued to the BPDA, stating unsafe conditions, unsafe structure for Building 108. Poses life safety issues due to a dangerous condition. The notice indicated to either make safe or raise the building, which is due to complete demolition. One noticeable dangerous section, approximately 60 feet long, needs a safety barrier wall to protect the immediate areas near the rope walk building and the construction workers working on that building. I know it's in the shadows here, but here's the corner of the existing Building 108 here, and then here's the rope walk building right here. The distance between these two, it's probably about less than 20 feet. It's a pinch point, and obviously the problem wall that I have, it's at the most closest point of the rope walk building. So to address this concern, BPDA recently approved a consultant work order through the house doctor contractor, Weston Sampson Engineers, for quickly designing a safety protective barrier wall to protect the adjacent areas and nearby rope walk building construction workers. Weston Sampson was also recently approved at the last board meeting for providing necessary engineering services for the future demolition, environmental, and site clearance project, including obtaining approvals from the Mass DEP and the Environmental Protection Agency. To expedite the emergency process, a waiver of public bidding the barrier wall was requested and granted by the Division of Capital Asset Management on February 20th. In accordance with the waiver approval, Weston Sampson barrier design wall was given 3 pre-approved contractors for bidding. 3 written quotes were received for the barrier wall on March 29th. Fleming Brothers, McKay Construction Services, and G. Green Construction. After review of the bids, Fleming Brothers provided all the required submittal information and is considered the lowest eligible and responsive bidder. And again, due to the emergency nature of the project, the BPDA directed Fleming to proceed with the work for public safety reasons. Therefore, it's staff's recommendation to execute a general construction contract with Fleming Brothers for the emergency safety barrier wall at Building 108. And if I could, Mr. Chairman, I just want to shout out to a few departments who have really helped me along to get to where I'm at today to handle this problem. Engineering and Facilities Department, the Procurement Department, Real Estate Department, the Legal Department, and the Operations Department. All of us worked together collaboratively, and we really did a good job, I think, to keep things moving along and keeping the ISD people happy as well. So if that is any questions, I'd be glad to answer those at this time.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board? What, is this going to be the set amount? It's not, you don't anticipate that it will exceed this amount?
I'm sorry, say that again, please?
You don't anticipate that the construction will exceed this amount?
For the barrier wall, it's a standalone project. There's not a lot of unknowns that I would be considering, so I would comfortably say, yes, this is fine. The big push now is to do all the necessary work with the regulatory people, EPA, Mass DEP, and the building department to evaluate the building as a whole to determine how do we quantify the work, how do we do the project and keep it in a safe and environmentally sensitive area there. Okay. And at the same time, provide the safety to the rope walk folks. That wall that we're going to do now would actually serve a double purpose for me, because when I do the demolition, I'm going to leave that wall in place, and that'll protect that portion of the building, which is the closest point to the rope walk building.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. If there's no further questions, and a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank
you very much.
Paul. Okay, the next few items are Article 80 development projects, and there is no public testimony. We're just going to hear from the proponents and the project managers. Next item is item number 15, and request authorization to issue a determination waiving further review of pursuant to Section 80A-6.2 of the zoning code in connection with the notice of project change for the 217 Albany Street project by increasing the residential units from 327 to 353 units, including 46 IDP units, and to take all related actions. Ebony.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. My name is Ebony DeRosa, project manager, filling in for Casey Hines. As you may recall, this board originally granted approval of the 217 Albany Street project on July 12th, 2018. As approved, The project consists of the construction of a new signature residential building at the corner of Albany and Herald Streets in the South End neighborhood, and is envisioned to introduce an all-inclusive co-living experience. On February 27, 2019, the proponent filed a notice of project change to request minor modifications to the unit mix. The NPC requests to decrease the overall units from 250 to 280 and shifts the total bedroom count from 327 to 353. The overall building area, height, and footprint will remain the same. The Impact Advisory Group was advised of this request, and the comment period for the NPC expired on March 28, 2019. Members of the development team are in attendance should you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ebony. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 16, over in Dorchester. Requests authorization to issue a determination waiving further review pursuant to Section 80A-6 of the zoning code in connection with the, let me get this, will you? In connection with the notice of change for the dot block development project for construction of four, excuse me, if there's any disturbance, I will ask you to leave. If you do not leave, I will have you removed. So please be silent while I can, excuse me. Let me finish reading my statement. If I keep getting disturbed, I'm going to ask the officer to come in and remove you. Okay? The notice of project change for the dot block development project for construction of 4 buildings consisting of 488 residential units, which is an increase of 126 units, including 66 IDP units, 20% of compact units with tenant amenities, 23,000 square feet of commercial, retail, and restaurant space, bicycle storage spaces, and 345 parking spaces with drop-off locations, and to take all related actions. Ashling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. On May 12, 2016, this board approved the original dot block development project for the revitalization of an approximately 4-acre stretch of land along Dorchester Avenue, which had been long underutilized as largely vacant warehouse space. The original dot block project, per this board's approval and subsequent city permitting, called for the construction of approximately 362 residential units, approximately 37,000 square feet of new retail space, and a 5-story above-ground parking garage with approximately 450 spaces. Excuse me. In December of 2016, Winter Gold LLC acquired the project site from the previous owner, and on January 31st, 2019, Winter Gold, in collaboration with Samuels & Associates, together the proponent, filed a notice of project change at the Boston Planning and Development Agency for the dot block development project. The notice of project change builds on the planning goals of the original dot block project while also incorporating improvements driven by planning, urban design, and transportation considerations that have come out of the BPDA's Plan Glover's Corner planning study. Turning your attention to the presentation screen for a moment, I would like to highlight the dot block notice of project change is consistent with the recommendations anticipated to be presented to this board in the coming months and the request for adoption of the plan. The dot block notice of project change contemplates an improved project consisting of approximately 488 residential rental units contained in 4 new buildings, approximately 30,000 square feet of neighborhood-oriented retail and restaurant space, the replacement of the original 5-story above-ground parking garage with a below-ground parking structure with capacity for approximately 345 vehicles, and the creation of almost 1.34 acres of open space and connectivity through the site. Following the proponent's submission of the notice of project change, the BPDA hosted an Impact Advisory Group meeting on February 6th and 2 public meetings on February 11th and March 6th, respectively. On March 5th, the Boston Civic Design Commission provided a recommendation of design approval for the proposed project. The proponent has exceeded the public benefits and mitigation commitments of the original dot block proposal and approval. The proposed project will provide substantial public benefits, the full details of which are available in the board memos in front of you. But to highlight a few of these items, the proponent is committed to the reconstruction of the intersection of Hancock and Pleasant Streets, the construction of new sidewalks around the project site with increased setbacks and landscaping improvements, providing community meeting space within the project, contributions to the restoration of local public amenities and public safety projects, and an approximately $350,000 contribution to be managed by the BPDA through a community benefits application process. An expansion upon the inclusionary development policy commitments of the originally approved dot block project is also included within this NPC. 13% or 40 units of the originally approved dot block project were provided as IDP units. 15% of the additional 126 units proposed under the NPC will be provided as IDP units, creating 66 IDP units in total within the dot block development project. BPDA staff is also pleased to share that 33 of the IDP units will have a neighborhood diversity preservation preference, which you heard Councillor Baker speak to earlier on this evening. Additional levels of affordability have been provided on the IDP units being created, the details of which will be shared with the board in the presentation to follow. BPDA Housing Policy Manager Tim Davis also worked closely and very diligently with the development team on that, so I'm sure he'll be happy to answer any questions should the board have them later on. BPDA staff is pleased to recommend the dot block notice of project change for the board's approval this evening. We have appreciated engaging with residents and organizations representing the Dorchester neighborhood, including our friends from Dorchester Not for Sale who are here this evening. We value the opportunity for continued dialogue and collaboration and thank all who have been a part of the process so far for their interest and involvement in their neighborhood and our city as a whole. I would also like to acknowledge the service of the Impact Advisory Group members and the elected officials and their local staff and thank them for their time and efforts over the last several years. I'd like to introduce Abe Menzen of Samuels and Associates. Again, BPDA staff are on hand, happy to answer any questions at the conclusion of the presentation.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden. My name is Abe Menzen. I'm with Samuels and Associates. We are the proponent of the developer of dot block in partnership with Winter Gold LLC. Just to give you a little bit of background on this project, as Ashling said, this is a notice of project change. The project was previously approved in 2016, prior to our involvement. It underwent approximately 3 years of public review, as Councillor Baker said, over 100 meetings. It was approved. We got involved in the project about a year ago. We saw a tremendous opportunity to take a site that was underutilized, that had vacant, obsolete industrial buildings located near the T, and connect neighborhoods together by taking down these buildings and building a project that really knits the neighborhood together. As we studied this project, it became clear to us how important it was, strategically located in the middle of several Dorchester neighborhoods, Meeting House Hill, Jones Hill, Savin Hill, Freeport. To connect, this site is the connector of so many neighborhoods. An incredible amount of diversity surrounds this project, and our goal is to create a wonderful, walkable environment where people can interact and congregate, and that is welcoming and beautiful. So our primary goals in building this project, in proposing the changes that we proposed to this project, were to improve upon the original project. We wanted to build transit-oriented housing. We wanted to do the maximum possible amount of affordable housing without taking public subsidy that is desperately needed by nonprofits and other and CDCs. By studying the plan, we realized there was an opportunity to take the prior plan, which included an above-grade garage, put the garage below grade, and dramatically improve the streetscape, create more housing units while lowering building heights and increasing setbacks for the neighborhood residents. We moved away from some large format retail that was part of the original proposal in favor of neighborhood retail that's oriented towards residents, local businesses, small business owners. We see an opportunity here to create 450 construction jobs. We are going to be on the forefront of outreach programs that engage the neighborhood and create opportunities for people. We are working with our contractor, John Moriarty, on programs to bring in small subcontractors, bring them into the trades, teach them how to participate in larger scale projects than they've previously done. We are rebuilding the intersection of Hancock and Pleasant Street, creating a safer intersection. We have increased the original amount of mitigation from approximately $250,000 to $350,000 through this notice of project change. That is money that could be available to youth programming, workforce development, or other community benefits. Most importantly, all of the impacts of this notice of project change are less than or equal to the originally approved project. The massing is better, the urban design is better, there are more affordable units, there are deeper levels of affordability than in the original project, and there are a wider range of housing opportunities. The original project, as I said, is on the left. So you can see the gray mass to the left of the diagram was an above-grade garage. It was approximately 450 car garage oriented towards the large format retail and the residential units. We have taken that garage and put it below grade. We are proposing to put it below both sides of the connection through the site. That's the really important connection from Hancock and Pleasant Street down to Dorchester Ave. By doing that, we can create about 1.3 acres of open space. We were able to create setbacks along Greenmount Street that are double what we originally proposed. We have taken the Pleasant Street building down by 1 story. This is a view of the project as currently proposed, the main connector through the site to Hancock, from Hancock to Dorchester Ave. We view this as being a space for the public. We view the space in the front of the building as being a space that can be closed down on weekends, host community events, neighborhood block parties, that's open to all the residents of the neighborhood and that everybody will benefit from.
People can afford to stay.
The original massing included about 525,000 square feet above grade, approximately 362 units. The current massing has actually been reduced by about 100,000 square feet. We now have 488 units. We have less retail, more neighborhood-oriented retail, as opposed to larger format retail, which actually results in traffic generation that's less than the originally approved project. This is a site plan showing the pink areas at the front of the site are the neighborhood retail that I mentioned. We have 2 smaller retail spaces that are intended to be almost like startup retail for neighborhood residents to prove out a business concept that will be really marketed towards Dorchester residents. On housing, we have increased the amount of housing by 19 affordable units. Of the new units, approximately 120 new units, we are providing 15% of those units will be affordable. We are including approximately 20% of our units will fall under the city's new compact guidelines policy. We will have 15 units, including 3.
15 units.
Shh, please.
488 people in the neighborhood.
Okay, excuse me.
There will be 15 units.
If I hear one more outburst, I'm going to ask this officer to remove you. Please continue, sir.
We will be providing.
Okay, I've been nice and I've asked you not to disrupt this meeting. Now I'm going to ask you to.
Displacement is violence, and that's not nice.
Now I'm going to ask you to please leave. Would you please leave, miss?
Displacement is violence. Displacement is violence.
Excuse me. I'm asking you to leave this hearing. You. Please leave. We're going to conduct this. We're going to conduct this hearing.
Affordability is not what our communities need right now. We need more affordability on this project.
Please, excuse me. Would you please leave? Would you please leave this hearing? I'm asking you to leave.
From the hearing.
Yes, I do.
Does somebody else want to hold my son?
Yeah. Please continue. Let's move on with this hearing. We're going to move forward. We're moving forward. Please
half
continue.
of the units will be neighborhood diversity preservation preference programs, as Councilor Baker said. Those will be available to neighborhood residents within a 3/4 mile radius of the project. As Councilor Baker said, we're also going to have housing application assistance, translation services to make it easy for neighborhood residents to apply for housing. This is more housing than the IDP requires. It is the maximum that this project can do without public subsidy. It is more than almost any other developer is doing without public subsidy. It is approximately a $30 million investment in affordable housing. This is just a slide showing 66 affordable units in the entire history of the IDP. There have been 118 units built in the IDP, under the IDP in Dorchester. With that, I'll turn it over to James Gray, our landscape architect.
Okay, thank you.
Which one?
Planned displacement.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden. I'll be very, very quick. Oops. Want to run quickly through some of the views of the project. This is the view of the project from Dorchester Avenue. The attempt here is to make a sort of a gateway into the new development and make it a very welcoming place for all the public. This is the view of the gateway from Hancock Street. As we move up Hancock and over to Pleasant Street, looking back at the corner of Greenmount and Pleasant, you can see that the scale of the buildings has come down. In the previous scheme that you approved in 2016, this was 5 stories. As we look up Hancock Street, trying to create some variety, Greenmount Street, trying to create some variety in this small street here in the neighborhood. And then finally, as we step back, we look up into the development again from Dot Avenue. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does that conclude the presentation, Ashling?
It does, sir.
It does, okay. Are there any questions from the board? Mr. Lansmark?
I'm just curious, how many residents have been displaced from this site?
There are no residents living on this site. The site was occupied entirely by industrial buildings.
Just answer the question.
There are neighborhood residents being displaced in Fields Corner, a mile away from the project. That is, when we met with
answer the question.
My view is that there are residents that are being displaced. It's a very serious concern. We are committed to exploring some very innovative ideas to try to shift to neighborhood stabilization efforts.
All right, and one last question.
Mr. Chairman?
One last
Thank you.
question.
Victoria Abolina, Assistant Deputy Director for Neighborhood Planning. I was also a lead planner on Plan Glovers until I took this new position. I just want to, in response to your question about displacement, this is definitely a part of the conversation that we've been having as part of Glover's Corner. It's an initiative that we've been running for the past 2 years. We have met with Dorchester Not For Sale. They're not, their concerns are very valid, and they're definitely concerns that we're going to try and address through the recommendations within the Glover's Corner plan, which is a 100-acre plan. It is that block. So you're correct. So you're correct. The dot block is part of the Glover's Corner. However, the project was approved prior to starting the Glover's Corner study, and I just want to.
Would you
So I just want to answer two.
Just direct yourself to Mr. Lansmark's question
Sure.
that he had earlier. That would
So
be fine.
during the 2-year process, we did identify that the study area has 73% renters, and of those, 58% are cost burden. So what the city is going to do in collaboration with the D&D and the Boston Public Schools is to look at public assets for public good for creation of new affordable housing. We're going to look at market rate development like we do in the rest of the city for creation of more affordable and income restricted housing. And we're going to look at housing stabilization strategies within the abutting neighborhoods and within the study area. So the study area includes 2 residential areas, which is the Savin Hill and Fields Corner. The study area definitely has impact area outside of it, so we are near Jones Hill, Clam Point, Meeting House Hill, Bowdoin, Geneva. So we'll be looking at that area as a housing stabilization impact area, and we'll be collaborating with DND. We have not finalized our recommendations. We did have economic feasibility consultant that has looked at what are the levels of affordability that we can provide in private development, but that is just one of the strategies. And we cannot be relying on private development to provide all of the affordable housing that is needed. So our strategy that we will be pursuing is twofold. Really, it's a two-pronged approach, which is relying on private development, which is what we do citywide in providing income-restricted housing. And a second prong is using existing programs and existing funds that we have as a city to create more affordable housing, more deeply affordable housing, and income-restricted projects.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we're on this. Are there any further questions from the board, please? Any further questions? Mr. Moynihan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions and comments as well. So, Abe, I have a question. What is the overall construction costs for this project? Not the soft cost, just the construction
The
cost.
construction cost itself is about $200 million. The cost of providing housing is the biggest challenge we have to providing affordability.
This is what, I mean, one of the challenges Mayor Walsh has, and commend him on his aggressive goals that he's trying to do. It's exactly this, you know. The rents, what are you hoping to get per square foot?
We've talked about that in some of the neighborhood meetings. We think we need about a $4 square foot on the market rate units to get the project built and cross-subsidize the affordable units.
Pretty aggressive on the $4. I'm not sure. So I'm glad you brought up private, and really my comment kind of is more on education and people not understanding the difference between privately funded versus publicly funded. Why is that building? And not understanding the difference between privately and publicly funded. So you're living up to the 13%. Is it accurate? Excuse me. Pipe down, will you? Is it? I live right down the street.
Excuse me, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Excuse me. Would you please leave this hearing?
I can see the project from my window. So my question is this on affordability. It's really a comment and a question. Is it correct? Every percent on affordability. Is there a rule of thumb? Is it 3 cents per square foot for the market ones? So obviously,
the simple answer to the question is it costs about $500,000 to build an affordable unit, and there's very little rent after taxes and operating expenses, almost none, especially at the deeper levels.
Per square foot number. That's fine. No further questions, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a great project, and I appreciate you coming into the neighborhood and building it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions from the board? We hear no questions. I'm sorry.
I do,
Yeah. We have a question here. We'd like to hear from this board member.
Can you speak to the number of public meetings and the availability of interpretation services at those meetings and in advertising?
Yep, I'll speak to that happily on behalf of the BPDA. I can proceed if that's all right with folks. The BPDA hosted 2 public meetings, an impact advisory group meeting. IAG meetings are also open to the public. That was lightly attended by members of the general public. Most folks opted to attend the following public meeting the week after that. Interpretations were not provided for the first one. That was an oversight on the BPDA's behalf. We provided interpretation services for the second public meeting, which actually were very sparsely used as well. But we did provide interpretation service for the second public meeting.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the board?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
I need a motion's in order. So moved. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. I'm going to take a brief 5-minute recess. Item number 17, requests authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 56 residential unit condominiums, including 7 IDP units, 3,265 square feet of ground floor commercial retail space, 5 parking spaces, and 56 bicycle storage spaces located at 1970 Dorchester Ave, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. John.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Madam Secretary. The proposed project is located at 1970 Dorchester Avenue, about 2 blocks south of Peabody Square, in the Ashmont section of Dorchester. The project site consists of 1 parcel of land that is approximately 12,323 square feet. The proponent, One Beale Street LLC, proposed to construct a 5-story mixed-use development containing the 56 rental units, including 7 IDP units, and approximately 3,265 square feet of commercial retail space. The proponent will also be making a community contribution payment of $35,000. $30,000 that will fund Boston Transportation Department improvements to enhance pedestrian safety in the public realm on Dorchester Avenue, and a $5,000 contribution to fund the nonprofit Greater Ashmont Main Street. Their community events, such as the Ashmont Farmers Market season, the Dot Jazz Series, and the Dorchester Bike and Brew Festival. The proponent filed its Article 80 application on January 2nd. The public meeting was held on January 24th at All Saints Church on Ashmont Street in Dorchester. The meeting was advertised in the Dorchester Reporter on January 10th, and the comment period concluded on February 15th. The primary concern with the community on this project regarded the amount of parking, the 5 parking spaces. However, the project is transit-oriented development, considering that it's right next door to the Ashmont station. At this time, I would like to introduce Attorney Joseph Feaster to continue the presentation. Joe?
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you very much, John. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Joseph Feaster from the law firm of McKenzie and Associates. I have standing with me Michael Hearn and Tim Long, who are the proponents on this development, and my colleague from the law firm, Tim Frazier from McKenzie and Associates. This is really a pleasure for me, and greetings to you as well, Mr. Director. This is the first opportunity that I've had to present to this board, and I was telling someone the last time I presented to this board was when Coyle was the director. But nonetheless, I'm happy to be here to speak on behalf of this project this afternoon. One correction, this is going to be a rental development, Mr. Chairman. There are 56 units that we have here. 49 market rate units, 7 affordable units, and as John mentioned, a transit-oriented project. If I can just an aside for a moment, Mr. Director, I just want to say that John Campbell is an exceptional project manager, took us through this process, so I definitely want to make sure that that was on the record and helped us to able to negotiate the community process very exceptionally. So I just wanted to have that noted.
We feel the same way, Mr. Feaster.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director. As well, in keeping with what both the mayor and the BRA's directives and sentiments, we looked at the housing units in a way of providing an opportunity, particularly for those who may not want to be the persons who are going to be the car owners. As John mentioned, there was some concern in the neighborhood about the only five parking spaces, but because of we're like a tenth of a mile next to the Ashmont station, and we're projecting these units to be for persons who would be less likely to have vehicles, particularly with the use of Ubers and Lyft by many of our residents. We feel committed in the community as well, and as is noted, we're going to be contributing to the fund both for the transportation infrastructure funding as well as some of the neighborhood programs in Dorchester. This is a design of the a rendering of the property as it sits. I'll show some others, future pictures which will demonstrate where it fits in with other developments there. I'm sure you're aware of what's along Dorchester Avenue or Dot Avenue. There's the Caruth Building and others that we are in close proximity to. This is the project site, as you can see, very close to Ashmont Station. Right there to the left-hand side of the project, right in front of there is Dorchester Avenue. Beale Street is to the, if you will, to the lower part of our project. And we've had extensive community process with the neighbors in that community as well as the Dorchester Main Streets. This is the project site. There is a Verizon easement that's there as well. That'll be incorporated in the project through the Article 80 process with the Boston Redevelopment Authority. There was much discussion how that will be incorporated in there, and I think by design we have been able to do that such that it's we have to maintain the easement, and we've worked out the arrangement both to the satisfaction of the BRA as well as with Verizon and how we will accomplish that. Did I do so? Okay. This is another from the along Beale Street side of the project, just giving the project site. We have, this will be, and I'll show in a later slide, in terms of where there'll be five floors on this particular property. As you can see, we're looking at trying to incorporate, again, with the conversation with the community, some retail space. We have a gym and a media space for the residents. We have a bike storage space in here. So we're trying to incorporate in a number of things based upon the conversations that we had with the neighborhood. This shows you in terms of just a section which shows in terms of the 5 floors that we will have, the 5 stories that we will have for the development. This is the elevation along a section on Dorchester Avenue. As you can see, there's some of the retail space which is reflected there on the ground floor. This is another elevation showing, I believe this is an elevation that would be closer to going towards the Ashmont Station. Oh, excuse me, on Beale Street, on this particular one. This is along Beale Street where this is the entranceway, as you can see there. That's the entranceway to the garage, and where those spaces are, they will be on site and behind where that white door is reflected there. This is another elevation of the proposed project. Another elevation here, which I believe is, excuse me, yeah, is the rear of the development. And as you can see, the red building there is how we fit in relationships to other buildings in the neighborhood, so we're not too obtrusive to what is in the neighborhood at the present time. Our building will be 63.6 in height, and as you can see, there are taller buildings that are in the adjacent to our property. And once again, Mr. Chairman, this is our project, 56 units. We addressed affordability. We will address, will certainly be committed to the city's and the BRA's job requirements as well. So again, if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain them, or any of the developers would be as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order? So moved. Second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Congratulations. Item number 18. Request authorization to terminate an affordable rental housing agreement and restrictions in connection with the 1065 Tremont Street Phase 2 project and to enter into an affordable housing contribution agreement. Tim?
Thank you, Chairman Burke, Secretary Palimas, Director Golden, members of the board. As approved in April of 2017, 1065 Tremont Street Phase 2 would contain 28 rental units, 4 of which would be inclusionary development policy units. The building is currently under construction. The proponent has requested to make a contribution to the IDP fund instead of providing the 4 on-site units. Under the IDP, and given that the approved project has 28 units, the IDP payment under our policy would be 204.2 units, or a total of $840,000. The proponent has, however, agreed to make a higher payment of $1.2 million, which will be made to the IDP fund managed by the Department of Neighborhood Development. The contribution satisfies fully the IDP requirements pursuant to the December 10, 2015 IDP, and as the amount exceeds IDP requirements, provides an outcome that is beneficial to the City of Boston. In addition, at the time of this project's approval, there were discussions about this project assisting the creation of income-restricted housing at 90 Windsor Street, a site less than 1 block from the project, owned by the United Neighbors of Lower Roxbury, also known as UNLR. No commitment was made at that time, as UNLR did not have a formal development plan. Since that time, UNLR has taken steps forward and are planning to create a 16 to 21 unit project. I and staff at D&D will continue to work with UNLR over the coming months with the hope that the funds secured from 1065 Tremont will support the UNLR project. Joe DeGangi from the 1065 team is here if you should have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question, Tim. If the UNLR project doesn't go through, will the $1.2 million still stay in Roxbury and create affordable units in Roxbury?
There'll be no guarantees of that, but that would certainly be our goal, and I would work with D&D to assure that we can find a place for those funds.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Tim. I have one announcement. We found a set of keys. If anyone lost a set of keys, oh, they were found. Good work, Lance.
It was the gentleman with the last group.
Oh, good. Okay, I have to go to the public hearing right now in order to satisfy the requirements of the public meeting law. So I'm going to start this public hearing, number 27. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in consideration to the Second Amendment to the Development Plan for Planned Development Area Number 60, the Kensington/41 LaGrange Street Development Project. The proposed project in Chinatown Midtime Cultural District, proposed by SFH 48 Boylston Street LLC, in conformance with Article 80C of the Boston Zoning Code, regarding the development of a new 19-story building with 126 units of rental housing, approximately 40% which will be affordable. This hearing was duly advertised on March 28, 2019 in the Boston Herald. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Mr. Campbell will now begin the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. I have, for the record, a 6:50 a.m. Letter of support from a David Nelson supporting 41 LaGrange project, and the proponent, John Madison, at the adjacent project that was recently proposed. Just want to remind the board that 2 months ago, possibly, we had this project before you on the Article 80 portion of it. Tonight, you're going to hear about the Second Amendment to the PDA. The project, as you said, Mr. Chairman, consists of a new 19-story residential building containing 126 units with no on-site parking. The project's unit mix is 50 studios, 18 one-bedrooms, 54 two-bedrooms, along with management offices, amenity spaces, laundry room facilities, indoor bike facility, racks, one per unit, an on-site loading dock will be provided for move-in and move-out. BPDA staff is recommending that the board take the following actions to authorize the director to adopt the Second Amendment to the PDA number 60. You will hear from Karen LaFrazier, who wants to address the board, and a brief presentation from Jay Zamansky, the project architect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lance.
Good evening. Thank you very much for allowing us to come and present this evening. My name is Karen LaFrazier, and I'm the president and CEO at St. Francis House. I'm here tonight with our partner, Lisa Alberghini, from the Planning Office of Urban Affairs. We'll hear more about the specifics of the project, but what I wanted to let you all know is when we first envisioned this project, we always envisioned it as a two-phase development. We were already before you a couple of years ago with Phase 1, and I'm so happy to let you all know that Phase 1 is completed, and as of this month, 43 of those 46 tenants have moved in, with the other 3 going to be there by the end of this month. We're here tonight to talk about the second phase and to build on the success of Phase 1. And the entire project has been built on the premise of creating an intentionally inclusive community in downtown Boston, where folks from all walks of life can be able to live together in an affordable housing opportunity. I think, as Lance has said, we've had lots of support from the neighborhood. QMG LaGrange, our abutter, 100% supporting this. I actually just got another letter as I was coming in. Somebody ran in who couldn't stay, so I'll provide that to Lance as well for one other person. And we appreciate the fact that just 2 months ago we were here before you and had received our Article 80 approval. So we look forward to sharing with you some more about the project tonight and hearing from other folks who have come out in support of the project. So essentially, thank you very much.
Great, okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jay Zamansky. I'm an architect with the architectural team. We were before you, I think, 2 months ago with a very similar presentation, so I'll quickly go through that to talk a little bit more about the project. This is more about the process that we went through. We did work with BCDC, and we took many of their comments and incorporated them into the project. It was a very helpful exercise. So this is the project location. It's located on LaGrange Street there, halfway between Washington Street and Tremont Street. This is a closer view of our site. It's 8,500 square feet. We're bound to the east by the Kensington, to the north by the Phase 1 48 Boylston Street project, and to the west by 4755 LaGrange, which is a proposed project that's already been approved by the board. In addition to those constraints, there is a no-build easement on the site that constrains where we can put some window openings, and so we're in full compliance with that easement. These are just some images of the existing state of the site. It's essentially a parking lot right now. This is the ground floor. So on LaGrange Street, we have all the public uses, the residential lobby, the management office, a community room, and a fitness center. In the back of the site in gray, you'll see all the services, so the loading dock, the trash pickup, the electrical room, and all of those services will be accessed by a little court at the back of the site rather than from LaGrange Street. This was actually a study that we did as part of the BCDC review that sort of explored the streetscape and how we were handling that. This is a closer view of the street elevation, and again, the idea here was to provide all those public spaces in the front of the building behind as much transparency as possible so that we can add life and vitality to the street, make it a more pedestrian-friendly experience, get eyes on the street, and make that, again, a safer pedestrian experience. It's another view of that. And again, some of these are sort of design iterations that went through the BCDC process. A couple more views of the streetscape. And this was the material palette, so we have a mix of metal panel and aluminum windows on the front facade. And on the sides in the rear, we're using precast concrete with aluminum windows. And these are some aerial images that show our project in the context of all the surrounding buildings. Again, the Kensington here and 47 LaGrange to the west. It's another view from the north. And that concludes our presentation. If you have any comments or questions, our team is here to answer them.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
So this is a public hearing, so I'm going to hold off any questions from the board until after we hear from the public. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this? Please step up and state your name. Step right up over there. State your name if you'd like to speak in favor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Minor Perez representing the Carpenters Union. On behalf of hundreds of union carpenters that live and work throughout the city of Boston, I want to go on record in support of this project. And we want to thank the St. Francis House for the wonderful work that they do serving our community. And we need organizations like them more than ever. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Director Golden, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Patrick Lyons, on behalf of State Representative Aaron Mikowitz, we'd like to go on record in support of this project.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm going to take the 2 minutes. My name is Steve, and I'm a grateful recovering addict with 18 years clean and sober. I am the longest permanent resident at St. Francis House in the Next Step program, which has been a godsend to me. I came here 14 years ago, and the late Myra Kraft gave me my first job. And she said, Stephen, if you foul up, Judge Douglas P. Woodlock will be a patty cake compared to me. I never let the late Myra Kraft down, and I never let Judge Woodlock down. But I'm just going to share with you 2 letters. One from a feelings group in a federal prison where I spent 18 months, and the other 8 years later, after being at St. Francis House, where I am today, in the Next Step program and affordable housing with unconditional love. They're both short and sweet, just 1 paragraph each. This is the one that I received in a feelings group in federal prison. From my daughter. Through all these trials, tribulations, and many more not mentioned, I have stood by my father in many ways. Some of my friends and some family members do not agree with this and wish I would dissolve my relationship with my father and move on with my own life. They have seen too many times the pain and humiliation I have endured at court appearances, jails, and rehabs. Nevertheless, I'm the only relative involved in my father's plight, and I just cannot bear to have no one. Therefore, it is this day that as I wait the arrival of my first child in July, I still live with the effects of my father's drug use every day. The only positive result of this experience is that I do not use drugs, and I have seen firsthand the terrible cost. I find life a little easier to live now because I took my husband's last name. I do not feel like every time I read the papers or hear the headlines that his name may be recognizable from the headlines and say, oh, you're Steve Gilboard's kid? What a goddamn shame. That was then, and this is now, after years in Next Steps program and affordable housing and unconditional love. Same girl, different time span. I'm on the advisory board of a nonprofit, but I'm not going to go into that. Same woman, same girl, okay? Please accept this letter as my personal letter of recommendation for Stephen Gilboard. It is my pleasure to recommend Stephen for a seat on your advisory board. Stephen has a winning attitude that embraces all challenges and encourages collaboration. He draws the best out of every person and shares successes. Overall, Stephen is a pleasant, generous person who is never afraid to take on a challenging task. He is an independent, self-directed person who is able to communicate effectively. His past experience, his life, has had the most profound positive effect on him. He will be coming to you with qualities of genuineness, warmth, compassion, and integrity. I have no doubt that Stephen will make a tremendous impact on the world at large. I am positive he will make an outstanding contribution to your program. If I can be of any further assistance or provide you with any mission, please contact me. That was then after affordable housing. I'm going to just end it.
Okay, thank you very much. You only have 2 minutes per person. I appreciate you sharing that with us, though. It's very moving, and I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Father Tom Conway, St. Anthony Shrine.
for better or for worse, folks come in and have confidential conversations with us. Very rich people and very poor people come in to the shrine. They're coming in from the neighborhood because we very intentionally built housing for rich people, built housing for poor people. It's psychologically very healthy for people to meet and rub elbows with people that are different from themselves. It's healthy for rich people to be with poor people. We just really, the friars at the shrine very much support this project. We're in favor of this project. Working families, homeless families need this very much. It's good for the city. It's a gem in lots of different ways. It's something that strikes tourists when they come in. It's like, wow, you've got all kinds of people. It's just a healthy thing in lots of different ways for downtown and the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Peggy Ings, and I am the co-moderator of the Midtown Park Plaza Neighborhood Association, and I'm wearing two hats tonight, as the moderator of the association and as the vice president of Emerson College's Government and Community Relations Office. This is a moment in time that I never thought we'd see the day that this opportunity would arise to build a mixed income with a commercial tenant on the first floor on this stretch of Boylston Street. I've worked with Karen for years on many capacities. We worked on the Midtown block for this street as well. But this is what we should be doing. This is a model. This is 60% of of the project is going to housing for people who really can't afford this housing. That's 60%. So you have upper income, you have middle income, you have a 30% income bracket, and this is the location it should be in. It has been a long time in coming, but the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is in the first part of this project. You have 46 people who have graduated from a program that is successful. And now this project will, I think, lead the way for more to come. The Midtown Park Plaza unanimously voted this project to go forward, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Good evening to Mr. Golden, the director, and chairman, rest of board members. I just want to convey, my name is Michael Taylor. I'm the president of Urban College of Boston, and we enthusiastically support this development. As you know, we are in the China Trade Building, which is just steps from this development. As a consequence, we're aware of the excited value this would present to the community. As since almost all of our students are low income, the focus of this development blends well with our mission. In addition to the remarkable restoration, the current development at 48 Boylston Street has provided needed affordable housing. In fact, we are very, very delighted to say that one of our current students who is living in a shelter is now proud to call 48 Boylston Street her home. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden, Gary Walker, electrician with Local 103, to speak in strong support also. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Chuck Cody, Vice President of Operations for the New England Center and Home for Veterans, and we fully support this project. And if you don't know where we're located, you could throw a rock and hit our facility. It's right outside the door. And we have 97 permanent apartments for veterans, and we have 186 transitional beds for veterans. And those 186 veterans are looking for affordable housing. We've housed 67 veterans since January, some throughout the city, others down in Quincy, New Bedford, various locations around the state. And I'll tell you, the veterans that are over at the center, they want to stay in Boston. They do not want to go to New Bedford. Not that there's anything wrong with New Bedford, but they want affordable housing in the city. And as a veteran myself, after 35 years, I'll tell you, it breaks my heart when I see these veterans suffering without permanent homes. So we're fully in support of this project, so thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, members of the board. My name is Joe Larkin. I'm with MP Boston. We do things in Boston, but here I'm speaking on behalf of our whole company, but also the residents and the employees and the workers of the Ritz-Carlton Towers. There's about 1,000 residents, there's about 1,000 workers, and many thousands of visitors that come there every day. We've been good friends and neighbors with the St. Francis House. We are a neighborhood because of the St. Francis House, and we're just here amongst all of us to support and wish you vote affirmative for them.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
How you doing? My name's Steve Brooks. I'm here to represent Rosemary Sansone, the Downtown Boston Business Improvement District's board president. We're in favor and support of this project. We've been working with Karen in St. Francis since our services began in 2011. She's been nothing but a tremendous support. I oversee 3 outreach workers. We work with St. Francis every day trying to get people off the streets in downtown and into stabilization. As an employer of 45 ambassadors, I can tell you that people are not successful in employment or in sobriety unless they have a place to go and sleep at night and rest. And this is only going to add to that and get people off the streets. So we're in full support of it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Andrew Moskovich. I'm a resident of the first phase of the development, 48 Boylston Street. I'm also a graduate of the St. Francis House Moving Ahead program, and definitely here in support this opportunity, this housing for me. Affordable housing is going to help transform my life for the better. I was once homeless and really had nowhere to go, and again, St. Francis House was there and truly helped save my life. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Hello, thank you for allowing us to speak today. My name is Barry Bach. I'm CEO with Boston Healthcare for the Homeless program. We're here obviously in favor of this project. As you know, and you've heard many of these stories over the years, housing is vital to improved healthcare. This is an amazing project. We have a 34-year history working with St. Francis House. Karen and I have known each other for years. She's an amazing leader, and we're just so proud of the work that they do. We're so proud of our partnership, and really appreciate your support of this project. Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Hearing none. Are there any questions from the board? There are no questions from the board. Lance, do you have anything further? Nope? Okay.
That concludes
Then
our
a motion
presentation.
is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Okay, we're going back to item number 19. Item number 19, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 3 townhouses consisting of 9 residential condominium units with parking located at 46 through 50, 54 through 58, and 90 through 94 Roby Street, and to enter into a community benefit agreement and to take all related actions. Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My developer and his architect are in the hallway. I'll just keep going here. Just for the record, there's some letters of support for this project on Roby Street. Madam Secretary, Director Golden, on May 11th, 2017, the Freeport South, I apologize. Roby Street LLC, the proponent proposes to build 3 triplex townhouse-style residential buildings to offer 9 market-rate condominiums constructed along the length of Roby Street in Roxbury. All new structures are wood-framed, constructed above-grade parking located either beside or behind the buildings. These projects are as of right and do not seek zoning relief. In addition, the developer has agreed to blacktop/asphalt Roby Street as a community benefit. Staff is requesting that the board authorize the director to issue a certification of approval for the proposed development located at 46-50 Roby, 54-58 Roby, and 90-94 Roby Street in Roxbury. Matt Mueller, the project architect, will give the board a brief presentation of the project and answer any questions for the board members.
Okay, thank you, Lance.
Hi, I'm Matt Mueller from Hugh Architecture. I'm representing Rocco Shippa, the developer. Take you guys through this presentation really quick. So this project's located on Roby Street on the border of Roxbury and Dorchester, near the the South Bay Center. This is the street here. You can see East Cottage splits the development into two parts. The first two lots are on the south side, and the third lot is on the north side of East Cottage Street. These are just views of the area as it sits now. You can see on the top picture the two lots, 46 through 50 and 54 through 58. Okay. And this lot is lot 8, which is 90 through 100 Roby Street. Again, you can see the lots as they are now, the vacant lots, and then our proposed units, which are 3 triplexes, 3 units on each lot. This is the landscaping plan. You can see we have 3 parking spaces in the back of each unit, 1 per unit. Some of our proposed landscaping elements. This is some of the landscaping that's already been done on the lot for some previously built units, which we continue to carry this forward through the newly designed units. This is the front elevation of 46 through 50. This is a 3-dimensional rendering of how it would look. Again, from the other side, 90 through 100, we've adopted a little bit different aesthetic. This mansard roof style was requested from us by BPDA. And again, you can see the 3-dimensional rendering from the other side. And then that's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you
you.
very much, Lance. Item number 20, in Mattapan, requests authorization to terminate an affordable rental housing agreement and restrictions in connection with the 422 River Street project. Tim.
Chairman Burke, Secretary Palimas, Director Golden, and members of the board. 422 River Street, located near Mattapan Square, is a 27-unit rental building completed in October 2017. Under the inclusionary development policy, the developer was required to provide 4 IDP units. In March of this year, Ben Jimal, member of the ARCS Urban AOP LLC, notified the BPDA that he had entered into an agreement to acquire the project and with funding from the Department of Neighborhood Development Acquisition Opportunity Program, known as AOP. This program, which is funded by IDP funds, seeks to increase the share of Boston's affordable rental housing stock that is protected from market forces, prevent displacement of tenants threatened by rapidly increasing rents in Boston's most affordable neighborhoods, and support and retain mixed-income communities by income restricting naturally occurring affordable housing from the speculative market. As a result of this purchase, the 4 IDP units will be converted from 70% of AMI to 60% of AMI. 7 market rate units will be converted to 60% of AMI, and the remaining 16 units will be converted to 100% of AMI units. In total, all 27 units would be income restricted. Current tenants will be allowed to remain, and any units that do not meet the new tenants that do not meet the new eligibility restrictions will be converted upon turnover. The total purchase price and cost of repairs will be approximately $250,000 per unit, well below the typical cost of creating an income-restricted unit from start, which is $400,000 to $500,000 per unit, and represents an ideal use of the City of Boston Acquisition Opportunity Fund. D&D will be placing an affordable rental housing restriction on the project. The term of this restriction will be in perpetuity. As the existing BPDA restriction on the project is for only 50 years, and in order to simplify compliance, BPDA staff requests that the BPDA terminate the existing affordable rental housing agreement and restriction in conjunction with the proponent's purchase of the project in favor of a new affordable rental housing restriction with D&D. Benji Mall is here from the proponent if you should have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Are there any questions from the board?
Tim, was there any consequence to the original developer for not complying with his affordable housing agreement, or their affordable housing agreement?
The original developer is, you might say, on a watch list for us for any future projects with us. In addition, the purchase price, one of our requirements of this is to assure that the purchase price is low enough that it represents that the seller is not getting any undue profit from selling the project. That would come from not having provided the units.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Tim. Item number 21, request authorization to issue a determination waiving further review pursuant to Section 80A-6.2 of the zoning code in connection with the notice of change for the Freeport South Boston, formerly known as the Chandlery Building, changing the 114 residential rental units to 114 ownership units, including 20 IDP units located at 270 Dorchester Street, and to take all related actions.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, and Madam Secretary. My name is Stephen Harvey. I'm a project manager. I'm filling in for Lance Campbell, Senior Project Manager for this project. On May 11, 2017, the Freeport South Boston, formerly known as the Chandlery, a project at 270 Dorchester Ave, was originally approved by this board as a residential rental project consisting of a new 6-story mixed-use building that included a total of 114 units, 20 of which will be income-restricted affordable, in conformance with the BPDA inclusionary development policy. The unit mix consists of 20 studio units, 73 one-bedroom units, and 21 two-bedroom units. On January 23rd, 2019, the Freeport South Boston LLC, the new developer, submitted a notice of project change letter to the BPDA, requesting that the original approved project be allowed to change the project program from a rental project to a home ownership condominium unit program. The change from a rental to a home ownership program will not affect the number of units, the designated number of IDP units, the current building mass, or increase the FAR. James Heffernan, the project representative, is available for questions from the board members. Again, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Are there any questions on the board?
I have a question. Why are we agreeing to change to homeownership when there's so much stress on the rental market in this neighborhood where we really need more rental units? Maybe someone from the BPDA can answer. Or why are we approving this? Why aren't we sticking with the rental units?
Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Jonathan Greeley. I'm the Director of Development Review here at the BPDA. Member Downs, I think one of the things that's important to note is that generally the majority of projects, the majority of square footage that you approve annually is housing. A significant percentage of that is often rental housing. In particular, in this neighborhood in South Boston, there has been more rental units than condo units, and so we're actually really excited to see this change, right? So this is taking place in the Dorchester Avenue corridor, and to see a project of this scale switching from rental to condo, I think shows a strength in the kind of that planning area and that market, and also is a great opportunity for people to be able to buy and build wealth in this neighborhood. So we actually view this as a positive change. We're very pleased.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions on the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 22, I'm going to recuse myself.
Item number 22, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the Zoning Code for the construction of 31,140 square foot Boston College Harrington Athletics Village and to take all related actions. Edward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. I just received a letter of support from the task force for this project, so I'd like to submit it for the record. My name is Eddie Carmody, and I'm a project assistant here at the BPDA. This is my first time addressing you all, so I just want to say hello, and it's nice to be before you. The project before you is the Boston College Harrington Athletics Village Support Building, located at 149R Lake Street on the northern portion of the Boston College Brighton campus. The project is a 31,140 square foot building within the Harrington Athletics Village, and the project was approved as part of the Boston College 2009 Institutional Master Plan. And this was approved as part of the athletic fields component, which were completed in 2018. At that time, the fields, which were completed with only 3,000 square feet of support space, as opposed to the 60,000 square feet approved in the IMP, it was completed with only 3,000 square feet of support space, and now they would like to add 31,000 square feet. The project filed on February 15th, 2019, and the public comment period ran until March 15th. A task force meeting was held on March 14th. No major concerns were raised specific to this project, and the task force did vote to recommend approval. Moreover, we do find the project to be consistent with the institutional master plan. At this time, I will turn it over to Tom Keaty, BC's Vice President of Government Relations and Community Affairs, to go over the presentation in detail, and then we'll take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. At Boston College, when we do something for the first time, we call it baptism, and I think you did a great job. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, and Madam Secretary, for the record, my name is Tom Keaty. I'm the Vice President of Government Relations and Community Affairs, and I would like to introduce the rest of our team tonight. Jean Levesque from Boston College, the Director of Government Relations, Kevin Aiken, who is our architect who will be presenting tonight, along with Kim Dela Cruz from CHA Consulting. I've been warned that we have 10 minutes. We did have 19 slides, so we've cut back to 5 or 6. This is phase 2 of a project. We came before the board 2 years ago. The baseball, softball, and recreation facility is up and running, and this will allow for phase 2 to move forward, which is locker rooms, 7 batting tunnels inside, and coach's room, storage space, and the total cost is $31 million. We have already awarded the contract to Walsh Brothers. So I'd like to introduce Kevin Aiken from CHA Consulting. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for seeing us today. Last time I was here was for phase 1, and I might have had a little more hair and a little less girth. So quickly, this is the institutional master plan. We're on the Brighton campus, portion of campus across Commonwealth. This is a zoomed in look at the site plan. Currently, the site has the baseball and softball fields that were recently completed. And as part of that project, there were 2 parking lots that were resurfaced. Our building will be going into one of those parking lots. This is the existing site as it is now with the completed fields. We have some images here. This is the parking lot that we're going to fill in with our building. Our building essentially takes the place of this surface lot. This is looking from Foster Street across the baseball field to approximately where our new building will be, which is just above the seating on the first base side there. This is again looking at the existing parking lot. And one more view of the existing parking lot. Here we have a render. This is a rendering we did for the first phase, and we just show this because this was the rendering we created. And if you go out there, this is what you're going to see. There isn't any kind of hocus pocus. This is the rendering, and those are the buildings that are there. Here we have the site plan showing the new building in context, and then just a zoomed in look. So as you can see, we had 2 parking lots. Now we're down to 1 parking lot and the new building. This is, like we said, 31,000 square feet. This just goes over what's in the space. It's primarily, it's for the baseball and softball teams, so it's locker rooms, support spaces, and indoor hitting cages. Here's a rendering, a bird's eye rendering coming down from Commonwealth. The building is contextual to the surrounding campus and BC architectural styles. Just a quick rendering from the street. You can see it has a presence on the street. It's a traditional kind of architecture. Here we've created a plaza between the existing toilet building and our new support building. Another rendering view. And then this is parking, so we're displacing 15 parking spaces in the current lot where the building will go, but those will be recaptured and spread out throughout campus. Thank you.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation? Yes. Okay. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, a motion is in order. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, motion passes.
Thanks. Good job. That's brilliant.
Okay, item number 23, request authorization to adopt the Fourth Amendment to the Lafayette City Center Chapter 121A project, which grants a zoning deviation and approval for office use on the ground floor along Washington Street. Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. The project before you is the Abbey Lafayette Center, which has an existing 121A on it. On March 27, 2019, the applicant filed a request for a Fourth Amendment to the report and decision to authorize the conversion of ground floor retail space along Washington Street to office use. Although retail use was originally contemplated at the ground floor along Washington Street, there is a significant grade change extending from the corner of the building at Avenue de Lafayette along Washington Street, which makes retail use problematic. Much of this space was vacant from when the applicant required the project in 2002 and has remained vacant during the applicant's ownership. Other smaller space that was retail or fast food restaurant space is now vacant, and the applicant has had much difficulty attracting retail tenants. Interior space to the rear of the retail spaces was previously used for an office tenant. The applicant was approached by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance, also known as DCAM, on behalf of the Department of Industrial Accidents, to lease approximately 40,000 square feet of space on the ground floor building, including the former retail space, with access from the lobby off of Avenue de Lafayette. There will be no direct access to this space from Washington Street. There will be exterior changes to the existing windows and facade, and existing access doors on Washington Street will be replaced with fixed glass and attractive exterior treatments. DCAM will be relocating from other space in Boston and would like to remain in Boston close to the MBTA and other public transportation. The DCAM use will be open to members of the public, including hearing and other courtroom-type space, and will provide further public and pedestrian activity in this neighborhood. In order to allow office use at ground level along Washington Street, an additional zoning deviation will be necessary for carrying out the project and may be granted without substantially deviating from the intent and purposes of the Boston Zoning Code. The applicant has reviewed the proposed use with the Downtown Boston Business Improvement District staff, and there were no objections to the conversion of retail space to office use. The General Counsel has determined that the zoning deviation and approval of the conversion of retail space to office space does not constitute a fundamental change, as such term is defined in Chapter 121A as amended, and a public hearing is therefore not required. I will now turn it over to David Epstein from the Abbey Group for a quick presentation, after which we would be happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration this evening. This is a space that has been vacant since the building was repurposed in 1998. I know the predecessor owner to us worked hard to try and find retail tenants, as we have as well. There is a significant issue here, and that is that the space inside the window, just a bare 8 feet behind the street line, is 7 feet above grade at this corner and along Avenue de Lafayette and for a good portion of Washington Street. So we're excited about the prospect. We feel that it's been frustrating to see a vacant space for the duration of our ownership since 2002, and we're excited. This is a way to bring activity to Washington Street, activity to our building, more people. This is a good use. It's a public use. And it also serves the public good. And we also believe that by reducing the amount of unoccupied window frontage along Washington Street by almost 60%, The remaining 40% of retail space closer to Macy's and closer to the street grade will be much more rentable, and we fully expect that we'll be able to attract the appropriate retail tenants very soon to occupy that.
Great, thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board?
Is there a rendering of what this will look like?
Yes. Let me see if... So you can see now that we currently have, at the request of the Business Improvement District, we had left the windows open to show people that the space was vacant and hopefully use it to attract people, but we've put up scrim in front of that about a year ago. So that's the space that we're talking about. It's kind of hard to see here, but the intent is that up to the door line, which is about 7 feet, there'll be a decorative panels put behind the glass. And then above that, there will be a short screen that fades out. And then above that will be the office people will be able to see out, and people from the street, which would be about 8 or 9 feet above street line, would be able to see people working behind the office.
Okay.
Are there any further questions from the board?
Can you talk more about why this space sat empty for so long? Because I know that empty commercial space has a real negative impact on business districts, and it's a form of job destruction, it's a form of tax destruction, and I don't really understand why this space was let to stay empty for so long. You know,
it wasn't
did you
left.
try to update it, or what attempts were made to rent it?
This is a renovation of what was formerly an interior mall, and all circulation took place within the mall, and it was all basically blank wall along Washington Street. It was renovated predominantly as it was converted to office space in the late 90s, and it rented very quickly as office space. But structurally, the slab that this office will sit on sits 7 feet above the ground level. It can't be lowered because it would intrude into the city-owned public parking garage below that, and it would destroy all the parking. So believe me, I think of ourselves as creative developers. We apply a lot of innovative thinking to solving technical problems like this, and it simply isn't feasible. And I don't think I think the intent originally was that maybe the developer could attract the quote-unquote big box retailers that were searching for new space in the mid-90s. But that retailer has disappeared, and the 7-foot grade is simply insurmountable. So frankly, the number of people that will be working in this space will be greatly larger than the number of people that would have been working in a retail environment. And those people will be out and about, activating Washington Street. There will be people coming and going to the courthouse, because this will serve as a court for the to adjudicate work-related injury. So there'll be people coming and going every day. And we think that by now reducing that, what is currently almost an entire block of vacancy to by 60%, it makes the remainder of the space, which it's kind of hard to understand it, but Washington Street actually declines, dips from where our building meets Macy's. It's at grade, and then it goes downhill by 7 feet. So the remaining space will be on grade, and we already have tenant there, and we've had tenants there, and we fully believe that a tenant not expecting to move into such a vast vacant space next to them will find it a more attractive proposition.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
2nd. 2nd, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Item number 24, request authorization to issue an agreed upon written notification terminating the license agreement with the Korean War Veterans Committee and transferring all rights and responsibilities for the Korean War Veterans Memorial to Shipyard Park. Christopher.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Director Golden, Chairman Burke, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. My name is Christopher Breen, Special Project Manager. As you stated, before you is the recommendation to the board to authorize the director to issue a 30-day written notice terminating the 1993 license agreement by and between the BRA and the Korean War Veterans Committee, and to transfer all rights, responsibilities back to the BRA for the Korean War Veterans Memorial, which is in Shipyard Park, seen here in Charlestown. The Korean War Veterans Committee have reached out to us in written notices over the years with concerns of decreased membership and funding, and have asked us to issue this 30-day written notice taking back Shipyard Park. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thank you, Christopher. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is our commitment, the BPDA's commitment to this memorial, in perpetuity?
It's not written in perpetuity, but we have no intentions to do anything other than maintain it to its highest degree for the foreseeable future.
Okay, great.
There's no further questions and a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Christopher. Item number 24 in Charlestown, 25. Request authorization to issue a certificate of completion for the hotel vestibule, a portion of the One Dalton project, eastern portion of the Belvedere Dalton site, within PDA number 80, Christian Science Plaza, Huntington Ave, Prudential Center, located on parcel 26. Edward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. As you know, the 58-story hotel and residential project known as One Dalton is currently under construction, and it is nearing completion. As part of the project, a portion of Dalton Street was necessary for the construction of the hotel vestibule. Therefore, the BRA transferred parcel 26 in the Fenway Urban Renewal Area to One Dalton Owner, LLC. The developer has now requested a certificate of completion for the hotel vestibule portion of the project on parcel 26 pursuant to the LDA. Staff recommends that this board grant approval subject to final inspection by BPDA Urban Design staff.
Okay, thank you, Edward. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Good job, Edward. 2 for 2 tonight for your first night. Item number 26. Request authorization to execute an amendment to the land disposition agreement with the South Station Phase 1 owner, LLC, for the South Station Air Rights Project, and to execute an amendment to the development agreement with the MBTA, and to take all related actions. Tim.
Good evening, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Director Golden. The South Station Air Rights Project is a phased project over South Station containing a maximum of 2,725,000 square feet. The project has been reviewed under the large project review procedures of Article 80B. The BRA, by a vote taken on June 6, 2006, voted to authorize the director to issue an adequacy determination approving the final project impact report. The adequacy determination was issued by the director on July 19, 2006. A notice of project change was submitted to the BRA on July 29, 2016, and approved by the BRA on December 15, 2016. Corresponding votes under the provisions of Article 80C for the planned development area were also taken for the original and revised projects. The land disposition agreement currently contemplates that the conveyance and delivery of possession of the project site would occur on or before April 30th, 2019, and that the adverse conditions period as defined in the LDA would expire on April 30th, 2019. Pursuant to the development agreement, the outside closing date as defined in the development agreement would occur on or before which the closing date under the development agreement will occur is April 30th, 2019. To facilitate the development of the project and the public benefits to be obtained in connection, the proponent has requested that the LDA and the development agreement be amended to extend each of the outside conveyance date, the end of the adverse conditions period, and the outside closing date to October 31st, 2019. David Perry from Hines, the developer of the project, is available to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, are motions in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 28. Request authorization to execute a First Amendment to the grant agreement with Pablo Eduardo for the design and installation of the Boylston project located in the Back Bay neighborhood in an amount not to exceed $477,433. Funding provided by the Longwood Research Institute Fund. Christopher.
Good afternoon, Director, Chairman, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. You are correct. Before you is a recommendation for the board to authorize the director to enter into a First Amendment to a grant agreement for the disbursement of a total of $477,433 to artist Pablo Eduardo to fund the design and installation of the Boyle Street Marker project. The funds will be dispersed from the Longwood Research Institute Fund maintained by the BPDA for the completion of the design and installation of the project. Please allow me to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board?
Particularly in light of the fact that the marathon is taking place this weekend, is there any special publicity or notice that we're sending out in reference to our support of this?
I'm not aware of any, no.
Oh. Well, there's still time to fix that opportunity.
Christopher, do you have any idea when they're going to unveil the installation?
I don't have any answers for that, no.
Okay.
The city, through the mayor's office, has been coordinating and working with the artist, and I understand that it has taken some time, but we're just here to support getting that through. But so those efforts are being worked out in other parts of the building.
Great. Okay. Thank you. If there's no further questions, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Christopher. Item number 29 was removed. Item number 30 is personnel.
That was Renee. Hold on one second. Move this up a little bit. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. We just have a few items for your consideration on the BRA agenda. We have one appointment for your consideration with further details listed in the board memo, and that's Brian Connolly to be Director of Finance. We have one status change for your consideration with further details listed in the board memo, and that's John Campbell, Project Manager and Development Review. And finally, we have two travel items for your consideration with additional details in the board memo. One is Trin Nguyen, Director of Office and Workforce Development, and two is Elizabeth Stifel, Senior Architect and Urban Designer. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Item number 31, contractual. Need a motion to pay the bills.
Pay our bills.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And finally, number 32, Director's brief update.
Mr. Chairman, and through you to the members, I just want to tell a story about a really wonderful event that a lot of staff attended along with the mayor in Mattapan on Tuesday morning. It was, given some of the projects that that you all approve here monthly, in sheer size, this was relatively small, but very important, and it evidences our commitment to making sure that the benefits of our planning and development boom are felt throughout the city. So the mayor joined the governor for the announcement of a grant that helps support the creation of 135 units of housing, 135 affordable units, some of which are deeply affordable, down at the MBTA commuter rail station in Mattapan. It was a terrific morning, and it's because of a variety of things. It's state-city collaboration, state and Commonwealth working well together, their staffs working well together to bring about a TOD, transit-oriented development at the train station in Mattapan. It's also a neighborhood that historically in recent years has not benefited significantly from the development boom that's occurring closer to the core downtown and in several other neighborhoods. But this was a quality development that the state and city worked on along with two important nonprofits, POA, Preservation of Affordable Housing, Inc., as well as Nuestra Comunidad. And by cobbling together the efforts of the nonprofit world, the state, Department of Neighborhood Development, the BPDA, we were able to bring this about. And again, it's not just a development, it's development that is consistent and consonant with an effort all up and down Blue Hill Ave in Mattapan. As you know, we've kicked off the Plan Mattapan effort. In recent months, we've had a couple different planning sessions out in the neighborhood. So people in Mattapan are now seeing really good quality, community-focused, granular planning in their neighborhood, and they're also seeing that there is actual investment in multiple nodes in and around that planning area. So this was an important manifestation of our efforts, and once again, demonstrating the mayor's commitment to the expectation that we will do quality planning and we'll make sure that the benefits of development are shared throughout all of the city's neighborhoods. So that was a happy event for us. And again, I think it's a great metaphor for what we're trying to do throughout the city in all the city's neighborhoods. So thanks very much and good night.
Great. Thank you, Brian. We need a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.